Chapter 936. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong instantly gritted her teeth. This man, did he really like to act? She would fulfill his wish. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong's lips suddenly curved into a beautiful smile. So that's how it is. Then I've really misunderstood you, Chief Instructor. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she placed Yi Qianxian's hand back on her waist. With a faint smile on her lips, she looked at Yi Qianxian with an apologetic and embarrassed gaze. Since that's the case, please feel me properly, Chief Instructor. Remember, don't miss anything. Otherwise, if there's something wrong with the information you've investigated, I won't be able to smoothly improve my strength. Thank you, Instructor. As Luo Qingtong spoke, Yi Qianxian's heart instantly felt stifled. He looked at the apologetic expression on the young girl's face, and his heart instantly felt stifled. He just wanted to tease this woman and see her explode in anger. However, when he saw that she wasn't angry and even allowed him to touch her, Yi Qianxian couldn't feel happy at all, okay? He knew that Chief Instructor Yi Luo was him. However, Luo Qingtong and the others didn't know. This woman actually allowed another man to touch her? Even if he wanted to improve his strength, she wouldn't allow it. Yi Qianxian felt a wave of stifled anger in his heart. The stifling anger in his heart made his disguised face look even colder and colder. All right. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a word from between his teeth. If it weren't for the fact that he still remembered that his identity was Yi Qianxian and not Yi Qianxian, and that this wasn't the right place to be, he would have already pressed the young girl in front of him into his arms and ruthlessly punished her. This woman was really, coming here personally to stand guard was indeed the right thing to do. Otherwise, if she wasn't careful, who knew how many rotten peach blossoms she would attract? Yi Qianxian felt suffocated. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and continued to stroke her back. But this time, he wasn't in the mood to tease Luo Qingtong like before. His movements were very fast, and there wasn't a trace of ambiguity. Luo Qingtong snickered in her heart when she sensed the low pressure coming from the man's body. The smile on her lips grew wider and wider. She paused midway and asked Yi Qianxian, Chief Instructor, is my aura weak? Do you want to take a closer look? And here, Chief Instructor, when my aura passed by, my meridians were faintly swollen and painful. Was it because I was injured before? Do you want to touch more for me? As Luo Qingtong's voice continued to ring out, Yi Qianxian's face turned darker and darker. There was no other reason. When Luo Qingtong stopped, there were some places that just happened to be sensitive areas on the girl's body. If this was Yi Qianxian's original identity, he would of course be happy that Luo Qingtong was cooperating with him. How comfortable would it be to have a soft and fragrant jade in his arms? But unfortunately he was now Yi Luo. When he thought about how he was touching Luo Qingtong's body as a stranger, even if they were separated by a thick robe, he felt a wave of displeasure in his heart. But this was a trap that he had dug for himself. Who asked him to tell Luo Qingtong that if he didn't understand the situation inside her body, it wouldn't be easy for her to improve her strength. Now he had dug himself into a trap. Yi Qianxian finished examining Luo Qingtong's body with a dark expression, and prepared to leave without saying a word. Chapter 937. Chief Instructor, aren't you going to check for the others? Are you too tired? Then I'll check for them on your behalf. Luo Qingtong had just finished speaking when the veins on Yi Qianxian's forehead popped. She was going to check for them, just like how he had treated her? Yi Qianxian's face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot when he thought of how his hands had roamed all over Luo Qingtong's body, and how she would treat the others the same way he had treated her. No. He flung his sleeves and said through gritted teeth, they don't need it. Why? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian's gloomy face that was as black as the bottom of a pot. She was laughing so hard in her heart that she was about to fall over. However, on the surface, she looked puzzled and innocent. She loved to see Yi Qianxian so angry that he wanted to explode but couldn't do anything about it. She wanted him to hide his identity and flirt with her. Because I can only help one person raise their strength by one realm at a time. You want to give up this opportunity? Yi Qianxian looked at her with a dark expression. Luo Qingtong stuck out her tongue and didn't say anything. Although she really wanted to tease the man again, It would be troublesome if she accidentally overdid it. Luo Qingtong felt that it was better to take it easy. If the man found out that she had already discovered his identity and was still teasing him, she didn't know how angry he would be. Most importantly, Luo Qingtong hadn't had enough fun yet. With that thought, Luo Qingtong immediately responded obediently and didn't walk over to Yuan Hu and the others. She was just putting on an act. If she really touched them in front of Yi Qianxian, she was afraid that the man wouldn't even care about his disguise and would directly attack her. How could she let Yi Qianxian do that? Seeing that Luo Qingtong had finally calmed down, Yi Qianxian snorted coldly. Without saying anything, he turned and left. He was so infuriated by Luo Qingtong that he didn't want to stay here any longer. She would settle the score with this woman when she got back. Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth. Oh my god, that scared me to death. It wasn't until Yi Qianxian's figure disappeared from everyone's sight that someone patted his chest and exclaimed. Yes. The chief instructor's aura is so scary. It's even scarier than when the grand principal and the others are angry. Everyone was shocked. When Luo Qingtong was interacting with Yi Qianxian, the latter's aura was terrifying. Except for Luo Qingtong, the others were all shocked to the spot. It was as if they were being stared at by an ancient fierce beast. They didn't even dare to move. They were envious of Luo Qingtong for being able to interact with Yi Qianxian so easily. Boss, you're still the best. The chief instructor has such a terrifying aura, yet you were able to chat so happily with him. Yuan Hu and the others patted their chests and said, Not at all. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up. She couldn't help but laugh when she thought of the man's dark face and violent mood before he left. The chief instructor is quite interesting. And he's very cute. Haha. With that kind of EQ, the man still wanted to hide his identity and tease her. Let's see how I tease him until he starts to doubt his life. Luo Qingtong laughed as she walked out with Yuan Hu and the others. Let's go, we'll go back first and deal with the Heavenly Demon group. Also, as a reward for the Gui Yuan group helping us this time, send a third of the resources to the Gui Yuan group. Say that it's my thanks to the Crown Prince. She was thanking him for giving her the medicine and protecting Yuan Hu and the others. She said that she would return the favor to Ma Chenyi. Chapter 938. Yes. Yuan Hu and the rest left excitedly. This time Luo Qingtong really helped them vent their anger. Not only that, but she also got so many good things. Not only did they snatch back the resources that the Dragon Group's people had snatched away from them, but they also cheated the Dragon Group's people. Thinking of the Dragon Corps' faces when they paid for the resources, Yuan Hu and the rest were indescribably happy. Not to mention forcing Yuan Mo and Su Jinhua to kneel and apologize. He felt really good about venting his anger. Yuan Hu, Ling Tianhan, and the others all had proud expressions on their faces. However, at the same time, they were also worried. Luo Qingtong had treated the Dragon Group, Yuan Ma, and the others like that. Would the latter use even more shameless tricks? Especially the Dragon Corps' people. Behind them was the Martial King. Thinking this, they all made up their minds to cultivate properly. In the future, they wouldn't let Luo Qingtong fight alone. Every time, they had to rely on their boss to get justice for them. They had enough of being a burden. Being taken in as a closed-door student by the chief instructor was one of their chances. When the time came, they would train properly and not disappoint their boss. They wouldn't let anyone get past them and attack their boss. Everyone made up their minds. In the Seoul Institute, the Seoul Institute's head teacher brought Yuan Mo and Su Jinhua back. Before he could reprimand them, the Grand Dean arrived. After being warned and forced to promise that he wouldn't use his power and authority to harm Luo Qingtong, Su Deheng sent the Grand Dean away and knocked Yuan Mo to the ground. Pa! Yuan Mo's face was slapped harshly by him. Evil disciple, kneel down. Su Deheng's face was filled with anger. He had never been so humiliated like today. All of this was because of that Luo Qingtong. And this proud student in front of him was the fiancé of that Luo Qingtong. No matter how the other party trampled on him, he still refused to break off the engagement. The Seoul Institute's great teacher used to think that Yuan Ma was someone who valued relationships and kept his promises. But now, he only felt shame and resentment. If you still treat me as your teacher, then divorce Luo Qingtong after the gambling match. Su Deheng slammed the armrest of his seat heavily. The armrest of the gold and iron Jinnan wood was smashed into pieces almost instantly under his unrestrained strength. It could be seen how angry he was. Yes, I understand, teacher. Yuan Mo lowered his head, kneeling on the ground. His fingernails dug into his palms. He didn't want to give up on Luo Qingtong, but he also couldn't give up on the support of the Seoul Institute's great teacher. After entering the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy, he became one of the most sought-after genius experts in the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy's heavenly palace in a short period of time. He was highly valued by the martial king. Most of this was because of Su Deheng. As the Seoul Institute's great teacher, Su Deheng's identity and strength were Yuanma's greatest support. If he lost his support and angered him, Yuanma would find it difficult to move an inch in the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy. To Yuanma, this was something he couldn't accept. Moreover, he still needed to rely on Su Deheng to stand out in the distinguished meeting half a year later. Chapter 939. Thinking of the benefits she could bring him in the future, Yuanma gritted his teeth and kowtowed heavily to Su Deheng. He said coldly, "Teacher, don't worry. Luo Qingtong humiliated you like this. I won't let her go. I'll personally cripple her strength in the duel 1 month later, and make her apologize to you on her knees. I'll help you vent your anger." He didn't mention the cancellation of the engagement. Yuanma's idea was to cripple Luo Qingtong's strength, so that she could only leave the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. In this case, he could quietly capture Luo Qingtong and imprison her in a place no one knew about. No matter what, Yuanma wouldn't give up on Luo Qingtong. She could only be his wife. It didn't matter if she was just a decoration or an empty shell. She had to stay by his side. Yuanma's heart was cold. "Luo Qingtong, I gave you a chance. Since you didn't care about it, don't blame me for destroying you." His words made Su Deheng's expression soften a little. The latter's purple-red face eased a little. He looked at him and said coldly, "I hope you can do it. Otherwise, don't call me teacher in the future." While Yuanma and Su Deheng were talking, Tiger Cub led a group of people back to the Dragon Group's encampment and smashed the main hall into smithereens. "Bastard!" Tiger Cub's face was extremely angry. "That Luo Qingtong is too much. She's too much." Ever since Tiger Cub rose with Mo Chunxian, he had never been humiliated as much as today. The Dragon Regiment was completely humiliated today. They had mocked Luo Qingtong for overestimating herself, and now they were slapped in the face. If that was all, it would be fine. Outsiders wouldn't lose anything by talking about it. But the bad thing was that Luo Qingtong came prepared this time. Thinking about the huge amount of resources he had to pay this time, Tiger Cub's heart ached. He could already foresee the severe punishment he would receive when Her Highness King Wu returns. And all of this was brought about by Luo Qingtong. Even the entire Dragon Group and King Wu had become the laughingstock of the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin. The more Tong Hu thought about it, the angrier he got. The members of the Dragon Group also had heavy expressions on their faces. They didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so capable. Which new student didn't tuck their tail between their legs when they first entered the school? Except for that crazy idiot from the Martial Arts Institute. However, Luo Qingtong did the exact opposite. She was unimaginably high profile and slapped them in the face as soon as she arrived. At this moment, they couldn't even raise their heads. Such humiliation caused them to feel extremely sullen and angry. "Deputy Regiment Commander, I think we should go directly to His Highness King Wu and ask him if he wants to make a move on the Gue Yuan Regiment now." A member of the Dragon Group said angrily, "That Luo Qingtong's backer is the Crown Prince and the Gue Yuan Regiment. Without the Gue Yuan Regiment, let's see how arrogant she can be. By then, she will have to spit out all the resources that she took." "That's right." The other members of the Dragon Group agreed. Previously, they were afraid of taking action because Luo Qingtong controlled the cultivation array of the Heavenly Hall's training ground and didn't allow them to enter. Therefore, they temporarily compromised and gave those resources to Luo Qingtong. But now Luo Qingtong couldn't use that to threaten them. As long as they got rid of the Gui Yuan regiment, wouldn't Luo Qingtong be at their disposal? Chapter 940. Don't worry. Tong Hu's voice was cold. His expression was extremely gloomy. His Highness King Wu is making his final breakthrough. When he comes back, he might be able to suppress the crown prince and become the #1 person in the holy court. We can't disturb him. Let's put this matter aside for the time being. Luo Qingtong and the others can't do anything. Let them be arrogant for a while. When His Highness King Wu comes back, let's see how they'll die. Tong Hu's voice was cold. The others thought the same and immediately suppressed the resentment in their hearts. While the people from the Dragon Regiment and Yuanma were depressed, Luo Qingtong's matter spread throughout the holy court of the Empire of Qin. Almost everyone knew. There was a new student called Luo Qingtong who took a 3-month leave. When she came back, the first elder and the elders of the holy court had no choice but to give in. She lowered her head to the grand principal. Not only that, but she also directly went against the Dragon Regiment. When everyone thought she would lose, she didn't rely on anyone and forced the entire Dragon Regiment to lower their heads. When the people from the holy court of the Empire of Qin who weren't present heard this, their first reaction was disbelief. Not to mention that not only did Luo Qingtong force the Dragon Regiment to lower their heads, but she also obtained a large amount of resources and made the Dragon Regiment, Yuanma, and the others kneel down. As the news spread, everyone who heard about it was dumbfounded. In the Gui Yuan Regiment, Ma Chenyi was playing chess with the experts under his command. The latter was the grandson of a first-class official in the imperial court, and was also Ma Chenyi's loyal follower. If he wasn't injured this time, he would have gone with the others to help Luo Qingtong. Like the others, he was also very dissatisfied with Ma Chenyi's desperate help to Luo Qingtong. Your Highness, if you really like this Luo Qingtong, you can just issue a decree to bring her into the palace. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? He frowned. The people we sent out this time are the top experts and core members of our side. Conflict with the Dragon Corps is unavoidable. Your body hasn't recovered yet. Isn't this giving Mo Chunxian an opportunity? And that Luo Qingtong really doesn't know when to advance or retreat. She's just a new student. She doesn't have any status or influence. What right does she have to go against the Dragon Group? Now she wants us, the Dragon Group, to clean up her mess. As he said this, his words revealed his great dissatisfaction with Luo Qingtong. Ma Chenyi glanced at him indifferently and said nothing. Luo Qingtong had neither status nor power? If he knew the real identity of Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't say so. She was the holy princess of Chu, and was valued by the royal family of Chu and the Blackfield. How could she be humiliated? If Luo Qingtong could tolerate this, she would be ridiculed in the future when her identity was exposed. What's more, who said that Luo Qingtong couldn't defeat the Dragon Group? Even Great Yong coveted the throne of Chu and was defeated by Luo Qingtong, not to mention the Dragon Group. Ma Chenyi didn't worry about what would happen to his people if they followed Luo Qingtong. He had a hunch that this time, the people of the Dragon Group would be taught a lesson by Luo Qingtong. He just didn't know what the other party would give him as a big gift. Chapter 941. The genius who was playing chess with him had just finished speaking, and the dissatisfaction on his face had not dissipated, when a surprised voice came from outside. Everything that Luo Qingtong had done, no matter how big or small, was reported by the Gui Yuan team members who had rushed back in high spirits. Your Highness, you really have a good eye this time. Yes, Your Highness, you did not see the ugly faces of the people from the dragon team. My God, that feeling was like drinking ice water on a hot day. One word, awesome. Haha. Hearing the words of the Gui Yuan team member, the others all followed and laughed loudly. And the genius who was extremely dissatisfied with Luo Qingtong just now, after hearing everyone's words, was completely dumbfounded. He could not believe that Luo Qingtong was actually so powerful. She had such means. And Ma Chenyi's pair of quiet and elegant eyes suddenly burst out with a strong light. The things that Luo Qingtong had done were completely out of his expectations. He felt that he had overestimated Luo Qingtong, but he did not think that the girl's actions would completely break his understanding. Such means, She was really worthy of being the wholly conferred princess who had relied on her own ability to be recognized by the great Chu sacred dynasty. Ma Qianye's expression was indifferent as he smiled lightly. And while the Gue Yuan team members were excited and rejoicing, in Yuanma's courtyard, Lu Long and the others were full of despair. After being sent over by Ling Tianhan and the others, they had been recuperating here. The group originally thought that they would be fine after recuperating. However, when their internal injuries had healed, they realized that there was a problem with the circulation of energy in their bodies. They did not know what was going on, but when the energy in their bodies passed by the places where they had been injured, it would inexplicably stagnate for a while. This stagnation caused them to be unable to unleash their strength completely. In a battle, a little bit of hesitation and a mistaken response would cause them to lose the battle, and even their lives. Not to mention such a big problem and weakness of stagnation of energy. The group had lost their qualifications as heaven rank students. They might not even be able to retain their qualifications as earth rank students. Only now did they realize what Luo Qingtong meant when she said, "I guarantee that they won't recover." They had also asked the sacred teacher of the Medicine Institute to take a look. They even cried and complained that this might be Luo Qingtong's revenge. She was the one who caused the problems in their bodies. But in the end they couldn't find anything. Everyone thought that they were deliberately slandering Luo Qingtong. Lu Long and the others were about to go crazy. At this moment, the news of Luo Qingtong making the members of the Dragon Regiment lower their heads and kneel down to apologize spread. Everyone's faces were filled with despair. Especially the two who betrayed Ling Tianhan and joined Yuanma, and bullied Ling Tianhan, and the others with Lu Long and the others from Tianyu branch. They thought that by relying on Yuanma, they had obtained a backer, and would be able to achieve a meteoric rise. But who would have thought that he would end up like this? As for Su Xiaoxiao and the others, after Luo Qingtong's arrival, they jumped up and became the targets of envy and jealousy. It was said that they had all been taken in by the new chief instructor as closed-door students. And that chief instructor was even praised by the Grand Supreme Dean himself, saying that he was very powerful. Thinking of this, the two of them spat out a mouthful of blood, rolled their eyes and fainted. Luo Qingtong did not know about this at all. Chapter 942. Bang! As soon as Luo Qingtong went back, she was pressed against the wall by a sulking man. "Where did you go today?" Yi Qianming's face was dark. "I went to teach someone a lesson." Hearing Yi Qianming's question, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. "What's wrong?" she asked deliberately and put her hand on the man's neck. "Why are you unhappy?" Of course, Yi Qianming was unhappy. He disguised himself as Yi Luo and followed Luo Qingtong around. He wanted to tease Luo Qingtong and see her defeated look. But, thinking of how the girl let him do whatever he wanted, Yi Qianming was angry. This woman, although he knew that it was him, she didn't know, right? How could she be so obedient? In front of him, she was so cunning and willful, but in front of others, she was so obedient. Yi Qianming was really angry when he thought about it. He leaned over and bit the girl's lips. "What else?" he asked with a cold snort. "Nothing else." Luo Qingtong was about to suffer internal injuries from holding back her laughter. This man deserved it. Who asked him to hide his identity to deceive her? She wanted him to die. I heard that you found a new instructor, and became his last disciple?" Yi Qianming said coldly. "Yes," Luo Qingtong said with a smile. "Speaking of which, the chief instructor is very good. He said that he would help me to improve my strength to the martial emperor realm within a month." "Lord, do you think that I am very lucky to have met such a chief instructor?" Luo Qingtong's words were purposely laced with admiration and joy. Yi Qianming heard this and exploded in an instant. "You like him very much," he said with a cold face and gritted his teeth. "Yes." Luo Qingtong nodded with a smile. "The chief instructor is so good. Of course I like him. Ha ha ha. You really believe it?" Luo Qingtong said and suddenly put her hands around the man's neck and kissed him on the lips. "Don't worry, I didn't. If I have to like someone, it's you." Luo Qingtong's words instantly eased Yi Qianming's expression. He looked at the mischievous girl in front of him, and couldn't help but pull her into his arms. She really is a demon. A casual sentence could affect his thoughts and emotions, but he was still willing to endure it. In the future, you're not allowed to casually get close to other men. The same goes for the chief instructor. Yi Qianming said coldly. He had completely forgotten that he was also the chief instructor. Hearing this, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly turned. How could this be? She wasn't done yet. This man had first changed his identity to flirt with her. Would he stop just like that? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong suddenly said, that won't do. Chief instructor still needs to improve my strength. Furthermore, Luo Qingtong said with a sly smile, he gives me a very familiar feeling. My lord, do you think he is someone I know? Or is he someone I know? If he had the ability, he had to admit that he was the chief instructor. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to stop her from investigating the other party's identity. Yi Qianming didn't speak after hearing this. How could he admit that the man was him? When Luo Qingtong asked him why he had to hide his identity and stay by her side, what would he say? Yi Qianming would never admit to such a thing that damaged his dignity as the Dark Lord. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hidden his identity and stayed by Luo Qingtong's side. Sleep. Chapter 943. Luo Qingtong held on to his waist while trying to hold back her laughter. The two snuggled up to each other and soon fell asleep. In the next few days, Luo Qingtong was busy dealing with the Heavenly Demon Group and the resources. Because they knew that Luo Qingtong went against the Dragon Group for Su Xiaoxiao, many people in the Empire of Qin wanted to join the Heavenly Demon Group, especially those who had been bullied by the Dragon Group in the past, and even caused their forces to disband. In the past, they did not want to join the Heavenly Demon Group because they did not think highly of Luo Qingtong. After all, they did not think that Luo Qingtong was qualified to be compared to Emo Qinshuan's Dragon Group. King Wu was very popular now. With the Crown Prince's silence, the future ruler of the Empire of Qin should be Emo Qinshian. The Empire of Qin would also be his world in the future. Under such circumstances, who would dare to offend the Dragon Group? But Luo Qingtong had offended her. Not only did she offend them, but she also trampled on the Dragon Group. Everyone thought that she would be unlucky, but in the end, the Dragon Group was the unlucky one. With such ability, most people knew about Luo Qingtong, and were willing to join her Heavenly Demon Group. After all, the Crown Prince's Gui Yuan Group had too many scruples, and could not go against the Dragon Group as they wished. But Luo Qingtong could. Plus, she had a lot of cultivation resources in her hands, so everyone rushed to her side. In the past few days, the door of Luo Qingtong's courtyard was almost broken by people. But this time Luo Qingtong was not like the time when she wanted to trick the Dragon Group. She did not reject anyone. She gave Su Xiaoxiao and the others the right to evaluate the recruitment, and asked them to be strict. Luo Qingtong was protective, but she did not want to be a shield and a tool for revenge. Want to be her people and be under her protection? Yes. First sin loyalty and fanaticism. Luo Qingtong would rather go without than have something substandard. Moreover, she had never set her eyes on the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. This place was just a springboard for her. She thought of the other side, that Yi Qianming and the others came to thinking of that man's inhuman strength. Luo Qingtong lost interest in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Her goal was to catch up with that man. Then, she would openly announce to everyone that he was Luo Qingtong's man. No one is allowed to covet it. Yi Qianming was also busy with Luo Qingtong. She had no idea what he was doing these days. It was not until 3 days later that Luo Qingtong received the news from Yuan Hu. Boss, the chief instructor wants us to gather at the Sky Palace's training ground. The group of people rushed to the empty space in the Heavenly Hall's training ground. Yi Qianming, disguised as Yi Luo, was already waiting there. Seeing Luo Qingtong and the others, he didn't waste any time and directly said to them, "Follow me." The group of people followed him and left. Outside the holy capital of the Empire of Qin, in the 100,000 mountains, Yuan Hu and the others looked at the huge waterfall opposite them in shock. Their mouths instantly formed an O shape. Oh my God! Their faces were filled with shock as they looked at the huge waterfall that seemed to fall from the top of a mountain, that was thousands of feet high. The water surged like a roaring dragon, carrying its thick body as it flew down from the top of the mountain that was thousands of feet high. Boom, boom, boom. The huge explosion and the splashes of water that were several feet high shocked everyone's eyes. Oh my God! Chapter 944. What surprised everyone even more was that the rocks at the top of the waterfall were so sharp that they looked like they were carved out by a knife. The pool at the bottom of the waterfall also looked like it was newly formed. There were no water plants or mud that had accumulated for a long time. What surprised everyone even more was that in the middle of the waterfall, there seemed to be something faintly blocking it. It looked like a small flight of stairs. Oh my God! Could it be that this waterfall was man-made? Everyone's eyes widened as they thought of this. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but glance at the man who was standing with his hands behind his back. He disappeared for the past few days because he was busy with this? Luo Qingtong's heart was filled with warmth. Every time she thought that Yi Qianming was good enough to her, he would use his actions to tell her that it wasn't enough. It was far from enough. This will be your training ground from now on. Yi Qianming's words were very concise and calm. 1 month. I will only teach you for 1 month. How much you can learn will depend on yourselves. The reason why Yi Qianming appeared to teach in the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin was because of Luo Qingtong. The girl needed a month to improve her strength, so he would accompany her for a month. He wouldn't waste any other time on anyone else. How much these people could learn would depend on their own abilities. Bang! As soon as Yi Qianming finished speaking, there was a boom as he waved his right sleeve. In an instant, an invisible wind swept out and cut the thick waterfall into 2 halves. Time and space seemed to have stopped. The waterfall was cut into 2 halves and suspended in the air, revealing the protruding stone steps on the stone wall. Do you see those stone steps? Yi Qianming's gaze swept past Luo Qingtong. From 1 to 10, it's exactly 10 steps. The longer you can stay under the pressure of the waterfall, the greater the pressure, and the greater the chance of a breakthrough. Usually, Yi Qianming wouldn't talk so much, but he was now Yi Luo and had to help this woman improve her strength. Naturally, he had to explain everything in detail. Just as he finished speaking, the waterfall that seemed to be silently floating in the air also came crashing down with a loud bang, and connected with each other once again. The sound of the waterfall was like thunder and drums. Everyone's face turned pale when they heard Yi Qianming's words. Oh my God! Cultivating under this waterfall? And he still had to endure the bombardment of the thunder and the sound of water? Damn it, Chief Instructor, this wasn't training, this was killing. Even the geniuses of the Gui Yuan group, who were on the Soaring Dragon list, turned pale when they heard this. The power of this waterfall should be enough to seriously injure the weaker students, right? It was impossible to withstand the pressure and cultivate under the waterfall without skills. The chief instructor's training method was too ruthless. But then their foundation, their strength, without damaging their foundation, their strength. After all, this was a life and death experience in disguise. They were all seeking breakthroughs in desperate situations. The chief instructor really put a lot of thought into this. In fact, it was the same. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianming wouldn't have worried about this. Wanting to improve their strength in a short time without damaging their foundation? Yes. Fight with him every day and break through between life and death. Bei Qing and Feng Yu's strength were trained this way. But Luo Qingtong, how could Yi Qianming bear to hit her? Not to mention kill her. Chapter 945. Bang. Everyone finally mustered up their courage. After all, they were the elites of their respective families. Even if they lost, they would not lose their confidence. Plop! The first person went up the stone steps. However, as soon as his figure appeared on the first stone step, his body was instantly swept down by the water flow with a bang, causing him to instantly fall down from the top of the stone steps. No. It's too slippery. The impact of the water current is too strong. It's comparable to the attack of the martial king realm. I can't stand on it at all. The student of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin shouted as he swam in the underground pool. Everyone's expression changed at once when they heard this. The attack of the water current was so strong? While everyone was shocked, Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up instantly. The attack of the water current was so strong, and it was a completely disordered attack. Therefore, they needed to circulate the power in their bodies all the time. They had to strengthen it when they needed to and disperse it when they needed to. In this way, the power in their bodies would become more and more harmonious, and they would be able to control it more and more easily. If this went on, the chances of a breakthrough would naturally be higher and higher. She knew it. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up slightly. Almost instantly, she jumped up from where she was and rushed to the first stone step at the edge of the waterfall. Let me try. Her eyes were shining brightly. Boom. Luo Qingtong had just jumped onto the stairs when she felt a force that could topple the river and overturn the sea, bombarding her continuously. It was still an understatement to say that it was comparable to the attack of the Martial King realm. With so many water currents gathered together, the attack power was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. When it was strong, it was close to the attack of the Martial Royal realm. Boom boom boom. Luo Qingtong tried her best to circulate the power in her body. She could not use her pupil technique at all. Even if she could, it was too late. The water currents were attacking her continuously, and the power of each part was not the same at all. Boom boom boom. Luo Qingtong instinctively circulated the power in her body to resist. The power of the water currents hit her body and spread to her limbs and bones. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, 10 breaths. Bang! Luo Qingtong's figure was rushed down the stairs. The next second, he fell into the water with a splash. Boss! Yuan Hu and the others quickly surrounded him. I'm fine. Luo Qingtong climbed out of the pool. The young girl's figure was exquisite. She was only 15 or 16 years old, and was in the prime of her life. After her robe was wet, it stuck to her body, outlining the contours of her body that were just beginning to develop. It was either concave or convex, revealing a different kind of seduction amidst the inexperience. The moment Yi Qianxian saw it, his eyes darkened. With a swish, he tossed his robe to the girl, covering her wet body and hiding the seductive scene that could make a saint go crazy. What are you all doing here? All of you go up and train yourselves. As he spoke, he chased them away. Luo Qingtong looked at the man like a large carnivore, protecting his food and driving away all the people who might covet his delicious food. Suddenly, there was a burst of laughter in her heart. Chief Instructor, how's my performance? She deliberately tugged at the robe that the man draped over her body. Chapter 946. Very good. Yi Qianxian stared at the girl's exposed snow-white skin and seductive curves with a burning gaze. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Damn it. Why does this woman look so seductive when she's wet? Luo Qingtong's robe was actually very thick and of good quality. Although it was tightly ironed and wrapped around her body, the places that should be exposed weren't exposed at all. But for some reason, Yi Qianxian felt that this scene was even more irresistible and seductive than when she was naked. It made him want to tear off her clothes at all costs. Yi Qianxian's throat moved. Just as he was about to move, he remembered that his current identity wasn't Ming Zun of the Black Field, but the chief instructor of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, Yi Luo. This thought was like a bucket of cold water that extinguished the fire in his heart. Thinking about how Luo Qingtong was so seductive in front of other men, even if that man was himself, Yi Qianxian still felt depressed. But he couldn't say anything about Luo Qingtong. She was wearing her clothes properly and hadn't done anything. With this thought, Yi Qianxian felt even more depressed. Get up. Put on a few more clothes and start training again. At this moment, Yi Qianxian started to regret making such a waterfall for Luo Qingtong to train. Even if he wanted to do it, he should have brought Luo Qingtong to train alone. But this way, he wouldn't be able to achieve his goal of hiding his identity. Yi Qianxian felt a burst of irritation as he thought about it. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian's appearance and snickered in her heart. Cough. Okay. She agreed and turned around. Then she pulled on Yi Qianxian's sleeve. Wait. Instructor. She looked at Yi Qianxian with a smile. Then she lifted her wet hair and tossed it to the side. My hair is tangled with a hairpin. Instructor, can you help me fix it? She was trying so hard to stifle her laughter that she almost suffered internal injuries. The girl's hair was soft and smooth, like a waterfall that cascaded down. However, because she didn't know that she was going to train in the waterfall this time, she didn't take off the hairpin. It tangled with her hair, making it a little messy. Yi Qianxian's face was tense as he watched the young girl lift up one side of her hair. Her black, satin-like hair made Luo Qingtong's snow-white skin appear even more tender and white. Because she wanted Yi Qianxian to help her remove the hairpin that was wrapped around her hair, Luo Qingtong slightly lowered her head, making her neck look even more white and slender. Looking down from his angle, he could see the tender whiteness of the girl's neck spreading all the way down until it disappeared into her slightly open lapel. That faintly discernible style and snow-white fullness made Yi Qianxian's eyes darken. He stretched out his hands stiffly and took off the hairpin that was wrapped around the girl's hair one by one. His entire person was in a state of ice and fire. He was burning because of Luo Qingtong's appearance at this moment, but he was also depressed and cold because his identity was not his Blackfield's Ming Zun. On one hand, he was so depressed that he was about to explode. On the other hand, he couldn't help but stare at Luo Qingtong. This woman was really born to be his nemesis. Yi Qianxian didn't know why he had to endure this kind of torture. Chapter 947. Yi Qianxian stiffly removed all the hairpins and beads from Luo Qingtong's head. It was clearly something that could be done in 2 or 3 moves, but it took him several breaths of time. During this period, his fingers accidentally touched Luo Qingtong's snow-white and tender skin several times, and he almost couldn't control himself on the spot. He coldly helped Luo Qingtong remove all the hairpins and beads, and then said in a hoarse voice, "It's done. In addition, starting tomorrow, you're not allowed to wear this kind of thing." Yi Qianxian was angry that she was so close to another man. What if today's chief instructor wasn't him? Thinking of this, he felt a burst of depression in his heart. However, he didn't know that if this chief instructor wasn't him, Luo Qingtong wouldn't even have the slightest intention of teasing him. All her gentleness and craftiness were given to him. Could it be that he thought that any man could get Luo Qingtong's favor? If that was the case, then in the 24th century, the men around Luo Qingtong could line up around the earth. As the most powerful eye technique master in the ability world, countless countries and organizations were afraid of her. They were afraid that the other party would take a fancy to their little assets. Luo Qingtong never lacked people who would volunteer to sleep with her, especially when she was a very beautiful woman. Even in the 24th century, where handsome men and beautiful women gathered, Luo Qingtong was a natural beauty that men couldn't forget. Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian's sullen face as he turned around and left. That dark face could drip water, and it looked like a storm was coming. Luo Qingtong stifled a burst of laughter in her heart. In the end, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. Before she was discovered by Yi Qianren, she wrapped the man's robe tightly around her waist and tied it around her waist. With a swish, her figure flew to the stone platform suspended in the middle of the waterfall, and continued the training. The waterfall training that Yi Qianxian specially created for her was really very suitable for Luo Qingtong's current situation. Luo Qingtong had just fought against the water flow once, and immediately understood the benefits of this waterfall training. Under the impact of the waterfall, all the strength in her body was tempered. Under such circumstances, as long as she persevered in the training, the longer she stayed on the waterfall, the stronger the strength in her body would be. In this way, the strength in her body could continue to grow in an incomparably solid situation. In an instant, Luo Qingtong understood why Yi Qianxian created this waterfall training ground for her. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at the man standing by the side, and watching her tall figure. Her heart was filled with an indescribable warmth and joy. So this was the feeling of being loved and cherished in the palm of someone's hands? Luo Qingtong only felt that she had never been so happy and relaxed. No matter what she did, there would be a man standing behind her to support her, and watch her move forward step by step. Climb high. Stand by his side. This feeling was really great. Haha. Luo Qingtong's voice was cheerful, hiding the snicker that she just couldn't help laughing. Chapter 948. Yi Qianqian's face had always been dark. But at this moment, hearing the girl's laughter and the joy in her voice, his lips couldn't help but curl up slightly. That pair of icy cold eyes also instantly warmed up, and a hint of a smile seeped out from within. It's good that this woman likes this place. He didn't think so much and finally decided on this waterfall training place for her in vain. Yi Qianxian hacked out the thousands of feet cliff here. The surging water of the waterfall was diverted from other places by him. It was all for the sake of creating an extremely suitable training ground for Luo Qingtang, allowing her to increase her strength to the greatest extent. She wanted to defeat Yuan Ma fair and square, so Yi Qianxian did his best to pave the way for her. She wanted to walk towards him step by step, so he stood on top of the mountains, protecting her, spoiling her, and watching her approach him step by step. She had her pride, so he would protect her pride. He was willing to be her strongest and most solid support. Rumble. Luo Qingtong's figure kept jumping up the stairs of the waterfall. Then, under the impact of the powerful waterfall, she fell down again and again. Once, twice, thrice, Luo Qingtong fell down the stairs again and again. Under the waterfall's pool, she was exhausted and bruised all over. But the light in her eyes became brighter and brighter. She could stay on the stone steps longer and longer. 10 breaths, 20 breaths, 50 breaths, 100 breaths. With each breath, Luo Qingtong became more and more proficient in using the power in her body. The power in her body became more and more solid and vigorous under the tempering of the waterfall. Finally, she broke through naturally. Rumble. For nearly a month, Luo Qingtong had been training in the waterfall. She didn't even go back to the sacred court. Anyway, Yi Qianxian was the chief instructor. With a casual word, no one would pursue the matter of them leaving the sacred court. The others also cherished this rare opportunity very much, especially those who grew up in the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. They didn't know why such a waterfall that they had never even heard of would suddenly appear near the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Moreover, it was so suitable for their training. However, no matter how they thought about it, the chief instructor in front of them had something to do with it. This made them respect Yi Qianren, and at the same time, they treasured this opportunity even more. They didn't know why, but they had a feeling that this waterfall might disappear in a month's time. Although he didn't know where this feeling came from, how could a huge waterfall disappear just like that? However, they still worked even harder to cultivate. As for Yuan Hu and the others, there was no need to even mention them. They didn't want to be a burden to Luo Qingtong anymore. The girl was clearly getting stronger and stronger, and she was also getting further and further away. If they didn't work harder, even if Luo Qingtong didn't say that she didn't want them, they would be too embarrassed to stay by her side. The group of people didn't want to be left behind by Luo Qingtong at all. Therefore, they trained hard. At least Luo Qingtong still had her Do technique. When she was blasted into the pool by the waterfall, she could slightly adjust the angle and strength so that she wouldn't fall so miserably. However, Yuan Hu and the others were completely smashing down. Chapter 949. Under such circumstances, the group of people still trained with all their might. If Luo Qingtong hadn't refined the medicinal liquid for them, many of them would have been crippled. Just like that, Luo Qingtong's and the others' abilities continued to solidify and increase under the bombardment. At the same time, as the battle between Luo Qingtong and Yuan Mo was approaching, a person appeared in the encampment of the Heavenly Palace Dragon Group of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Your Highness King Wu. Seeing the young man striding into the hall with a gloomy face, Tong Hu and the rest all stood up in surprise. 2 days ago, they received the news that King Wu would be back soon. They didn't expect to see him today. Yes. Mo Qinshuan's voice was cold. He walked directly to the main seat in the hall and sat down. His face was gloomy from the beginning. Tong Hu and the others were originally very happy about Mo Qinshuan's return. However, when they saw that his face was so pale, their expressions changed from joy to silence. Your Highness. Suddenly, a member of the dragon group whispered, your strength didn't improve? The group of people looked at Mo Qinshuan, and realized that his strength and aura didn't improve at all compared to when he left. Not only that, but he even weakened? The group of people looked at each other and didn't know what was going on. Didn't His Highness say that he was 100% sure that he could break through this time? They were counting on him to suppress the Crown Prince as soon as he came back. Unexpectedly, His Highness's strength didn't improve at all. Hearing someone mention it, Emo Chinchuan's anger flared up. He was very confident that he would break through this time, because he had absorbed almost all of Ma Chenye's dragon energy. He thought that he could absorb all of his dragon energy and break the dragon bloodline and real dragon fate in his body, but he didn't expect to gain anything this time. No matter how much he absorbed, Ma Chenye's dragon energy didn't budge. At first, Emo Chenxian thought it was because Ma Chenye got the 7-leaf blood refining lotus. However, he had not been able to absorb even a little bit of Ma Chenye's dragon energy for an entire month, which made him extremely irritable. This also meant that his previous guess was wrong. It was absolutely impossible for a 7-leaf blood refining lotus to reach such a level. There was definitely another reason that he couldn't think of. Emo Chenxian went back to the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin with anger. Now that he heard the words of that dragon regiment member, he was even more furious. Bang! He lifted his leg and kicked that member of the Dragon Corps away. Are all of you happy that my strength hasn't increased? His gaze swept across Tiger Cub and the others. These people were paying so much attention to his strength. Could it be that they were waiting to see him make a fool of himself? Or did they have some evil thoughts and want to replace him? Emo Chinchuan's words instantly frightened Tiger Cub and the others. They immediately knelt on the ground and hurriedly said, "Your Highness, we don't dare." This person would be the future ruler of the Empire of Qin. They didn't dare to offend him, let alone have such thoughts. Humph! Emo Chinchuan's voice was cold. He returned to the main seat and sat down. During my absence, did anything happen in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin? Especially in Ma Chenye? Chapter 950. Hearing Emo Chinchuan's words, Tong Hu and the others were stunned. Your Highness. They stammered and couldn't say anything for a long time. What happened this time was really humiliating. The group of people originally thought that Emo Chenxian would not be so angry when they talked about these things after his breakthrough. But at this moment, Emo Chinchuan's strength did not break through, and he was in a bad mood, so they didn't dare to speak. In the end, it was Tong Hu who told him what happened recently under Emo Chinchuan's gaze. Hearing that the members of the Dragon Regiment were humiliated and were forced to kneel and apologize on the spot by Luo Qingtong, Emo Chenxian was instantly furious. Bang! He slammed the table in front of him with one hand, and the aura that exploded from his body instantly blew Tong Hu and the others who were kneeling in front of him to the ground. Good. Emo Chenxian was extremely furious. He looked at Tong Hu and the others who were lying on the ground and laughed out of anger. How long has it been since I left the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin? How could you embarrass me to this extent? You were forced to kneel and apologize by a freshman who just entered the academy and pay a large amount of cultivation resources? Why don't you just die? Emo Chenxian was so angry that he even changed the way he addressed himself. He looked at Tong Hu and the others who were struggling to get up from the ground with a gloomy look, and wished that he could kick them to death directly. How could they humiliate him so much? Not only that, they even threw them to the woman Ma Chenye liked. How could they still show up in front of him? No wonder they were so surprised when they saw him, and so disappointed when they saw that his strength did not break through. A bunch of useless trash. Emo Chenxian was so angry. Tong Hu and the others knelt on the ground, and did not even dare to say a word. Although there was a rule in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin that no one could kill a fellow student, with Emo Chinchuan's status, if he really killed them and destroyed the evidence, who could do anything about it? The group of people lay on the ground silently. When Emo Chenxian was almost done venting, he remembered that Luo Qingtong seemed to be Yuanma's fiancé. He immediately said coldly, "Call Yuanma here." Immediately, someone from the dragon group went to find Yuan Emo and brought him over. Yuanma. Emo Chinchuan's voice was cold. Luo Qingtong is your fiancé. What do you think we should do this time? Mo Chunxian looked at Yu Wenma with a gloomy face. He had lost a lot of face this time. Not only that, but he also suspected that Ma Chunyi already knew about his luck-seizing technique, and had found a way to break it. Luo Qingtong was deliberately arranged by him to slap his face. On the other hand, Yu Wenma, Luo Qingtong's fiancé, was also suspected by him. This time, if it were not for Yu Wenma, the dragon group might not have confronted Luo Qingtong, and they would not have given Ma Chunyi a chance to slap his face. Thinking that he had suppressed Ma Chunyi for so many years since his rise, and at this time, when he was about to succeed, he was slapped in the face by Luo Qingtong. His face and prestige were all lost, and Mo Chunxian was extremely angry. He did not think that Luo Qingtong, the legitimate daughter of a lord's mansion from a small inferior country, could have such ability. So all of this was ordered by Ma Chunyi? Then, did Yu Wenma rely on him and deliberately create opportunities for him? Chapter 951. As soon as he said that, Yu Wenma immediately knew what was going on. He gritted his teeth, bowed his head, and repeated what he had said to Su Deheng before. Your Highness, don't worry. Since Luo Qingtong humiliated the dragon group and you, I will personally cripple her abilities in the duel 3 days later, and make her pay the price for what she did this time. Very good. Looking at the expression on Yu Wenma's face, Mo Chunxian smiled. He relaxed his body and leaned back, saying coldly, I heard that you would marry no one but her. I wanted to let her go for your sake. Since you have such an awareness and are so loyal to me, then why don't you show me your loyalty? Then let's do as you say. It just so happens that I need a few cheap female slaves in my backyard. I heard that Luo Qingtong is pretty? Mo Chunxuan's smile was cold. Although she is a woman from an inferior country, she is not even qualified to be my female slave after being destroyed. But I can't let go of those who offend me easily. Otherwise, everyone wants to step on my head. How can I deal with it? He looked at Yu Wenma coldly and said, After destroying her strength, send her to my mansion, okay? Just right, he could have a taste of the woman Ma Chunyi liked. Although Mo Chunxian didn't think that the rumor that Ma Chunyi liked her was true. But she was indeed on Ma Chunyi's side. No wonder she was so ambitious and wanted to break off the engagement with Yu Wenma. Mo Chunxian sneered. She just didn't know what kind of expression Mo Chunyi would have when the other party became a lowly female slave in his residence, and was given to his subordinates to be ridden by thousands and tens of thousands of people. Yes. Yu Wenma clenched his fists fiercely. Although he was reluctant, he finally gritted his teeth and agreed. Mo Chunxian looked at him and finally waved his hand lazily, saying, Okay, you can leave. 3 days later, remember not to make a mistake. Otherwise, you know what I am capable of. Mo Chunxuan's voice was cold. With Yu Wenma's strength, it was absolutely impossible for him to lose to Luo Qingtong. If he really failed, it would mean that he deliberately let go. At that time, neither of them would let him go. Mo Chunxuan's words were more like a threat than an exhortation. Hearing the meaning behind his words, Yu Wenma's hands suddenly tightened. In the end, he didn't dare to say anything and directly left. After leaving the Dragon Corps' encampment, his eyes turned cold. Yu Wenma definitely didn't want to give up Luo Qingtong. He had persevered for so many years, so how could he let all his efforts go to waste now? But Mo Chunxuan's meaning was so obvious that it was not easy to fool him. He absolutely could not disobey. Then he could only start with Luo Qingtong. As long as she surrendered without a fight or admitted defeat, then he would have no reason to attack her. Not to mention crippling her. This way, she would still be his fiancée. When the time came, she would kowtow and apologize for this matter, and everything would be fine. Yu Wenma felt that compared to being crippled and becoming Mo Chunxuan's female slave, Luo Qingtong would agree to his suggestion. However, Yu Wenma, are you crazy? Luo Qingtong heard his words and couldn't help but laugh. He wanted her to admit defeat and surrender without a fight. He also wanted her to kowtow and apologize to the Dragon Corps' people and the Seoul Institute's teachers. Chapter 952. If you're sick, hurry up and get treated. Don't be an eyesore here. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold as she prepared to leave. When Yu Wenma asked her out, she thought that he had changed his mind and was ready to break off the engagement. She didn't expect that he was here to persuade her to admit defeat. He even acted as if it was for her own good. If that was the case, why didn't Yu Wenma admit defeat? If he admitted defeat and broke off the engagement, wouldn't everything be fine? In the end, it was all for his own selfish reasons. Now he was acting as if it was all for her sake. Yu Wenma still had the nerve to say it, but Luo Qingtong wanted to vomit after hearing it. She didn't want to waste any time on him, but it was clear that Yu Wenma didn't think so. Luo Qingtong, that's enough. Yu Wenma looked at Luo Qingtong with gloomy and cold eyes. Do you know what will happen to you if you offend King Wu? Do you think the Crown Prince will save you? Wake up. If the Crown Prince could deal with His Highness King Wu, the Dragon Regiment wouldn't be the only one in the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy. I don't know what you did to the Heavenly Hall's training ground to prevent the Dragon Regiment from entering, but that opportunity can only be used once. Luo Qingtong, King Wu is back. What will you use to resist him and the Dragon Regiment? To tell you the truth, admitting defeat is your only way out. Otherwise, I'll break your limbs, cripple your strength, and send you to the Wu Imperial Manor as a female slave. Are you willing to do that? Or are you willing to continue being my fiancé and preserve your strength? Before Yu Wenma could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong's cold voice rang out. I won't choose either. Yu Wenma, wait until you defeat me. Let's talk about this later. Cripple her strength? Demote her to a female slave? As long as he had the ability, she would accompany him to the end. Luo Qingtong said and turned to leave. She was afraid that if she stayed a few more seconds, she wouldn't be able to resist using the life and death yin-yang sword to hack Yu Wenma into pieces. But she couldn't, not now. 3 days later, in the arena, she would openly trample on her opponent. Luo Qingtong, this is your own choice. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Yu Wenma was almost angered to death by Luo Qingtong. If it wasn't for her background and that opportunity, how could he have been trampled by her again and again? Luo Qingtong, since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me. In an instant, Yu Wenma made up his mind and turned to leave. This Yu Wenma is truly disgusting. He clearly coveted some benefits from you, and was unwilling to give you up. Yet he acted as if he was doing it for your own good, and was saving you. Does he really think that other than him, everyone else is blind? On Luo Qingtong's shoulder, Little Pig ran out of nowhere and jumped onto her shoulder. Luo Qingtong paused when she heard its voice. Then she lifted it up by its 2 little ears. Where have you been all this time? Luo Qingtong looked at it coldly. This guy ran away as soon as he entered the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Now that he came back, his stomach was round from eating. She didn't know which family he had gone to harm. Chapter 953. Chief Instructor. Following Little Pig's gaze, Luo Qingtong immediately saw the man standing in the shadows. She didn't know how long he had been here, and how much he had heard of the conversation between her and Yu Wenma. This man really didn't feel at ease with her at all. Luo Qingtong thought, and her lips slightly curled up. She didn't know why, but the anger she felt because of Yu Wenma just now disappeared like smoke. What was the point of arguing with an idiot? It would only lower her IQ. Anyway, she would torture him 3 days later. Yi Qianming nodded lightly and looked at the place where Yu Wenma's figure disappeared. The coldness in his eyes was sharp and cold. If he didn't leave this matter to Luo Qingtong, Yu Wenma would have died countless times. Now the other party even dared to threaten Luo Qingtong. Thinking of the words Yu Wenma just said, Yi Qianming couldn't help but emit a murderous aura. No matter how much he spoiled her, he couldn't get enough of her. The other party actually wanted to destroy her? Cripple her strength? Treat her as a female slave? Yu Wenma and Mo Chunxian really dared to dream. Resisting the urge to reveal his identity to Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianming, who was now Yi Luo, only coldly said, You won't lose. The girl's growth in strength was carefully calculated by him. On the last day, her strength just happened to reach the most perfect state. At that time, He could open her meridians and open the shackles of her meridians and heaven and earth's spiritual energy in one fell swoop, forming a new cycle of power. At that time, she would reach the martial emperor realm. Luo Qingtong's strength and heaven and earth's energy would correspond, and she would be able to activate and control part of the heaven and earth's energy around her body. And the martial emperor realm was also the time when the soul seal began to display its true strength. Yi Qianming knew that Yu Wenma was a soul seal spirit, a spirit emperor. But he believed that Luo Qingtong wouldn't lose. And, looking at the man's cold eyes, Luo Qingtong felt an indescribable warmth in her heart. She smiled and nodded, then began her daily teasing of Yi Qianming. Aya. She pretended to accidentally fall and fell towards Yi Qianming. Instructor, be careful. Get out of the way. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. Yi Qianming's hand had already caught her quickly. What's the matter? Yi Qianming frowned and looked at her, instantly forgetting his identity as Yi Luo's chief instructor. With so many flaws, Luo Qingtong was too embarrassed to expose him. She just had to let him feel that his disguise was very successful. She would get jealous for no reason. This kind of life was quite interesting. I don't know either. Luo Qingtong blinked her eyes and steadied herself with his strength. It's probably because the training was too tiring. Instructor, thank you, please let me go. I can walk. Luo Qingtong said as she leaned on Yi Qianming softly. How could Yi Qianming really let go of her in this state? Suddenly, he picked her up with a conflicted expression. It was hard to tell if he was more depressed or distressed as he carried her and strode out. Little Pig was already stunned in Luo Qingtong's arms. Oh my God! Is this world a fantasy? This woman actually threw herself into a man's arms and acted coquettishly? And the man wasn't even that man? Little Pig didn't appear for several days and missed the key information. His face was filled with sadness and confusion. He didn't know if he should support Luo Qingtong to find another true love, or break up the couple, and let that woman wake up and avoid Yi Qianming's pursuit. Hatred born from love was the most terrifying thing. Even until the day Luo Qingtong was prepared to have a duel with Yu Wenma, she still had not come to a conclusion. Chapter 954. Rumble. Luo Qingtong was sitting upright on the stairs in the center of the waterfall. She had been sitting there for nearly a day. At first, she would be sent flying as soon as she climbed up, but now, she could sit there for a whole day. The power in Luo Qingtong's body had already adapted to the impact of the water. The power in her body was faintly agitated. Bang, bang, bang. The power lines around Luo Qingtong's body, due to the rapid vibration of the power, had already expanded to a 1-meter radius around her. From afar, it looked like a cocoon wrapped around Luo Qingtong. Chief Instructor, do you think boss can make a breakthrough? Yuanhu and the others were nervously guarding the shore, motionlessly raising their heads to look at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting upright on the stairs of the waterfall. Some of them could also climb the stairs in the center, but it was impossible for them to sit there for a whole day like Luo Qingtong. Boss was definitely going to make a breakthrough. Yuanhu and the others were very excited. At the same time, in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin, Yu Wenma and the members of the Dragon Regiment arrived at the arena of the Heavenly Palace's training ground near noon. The arena in the center was already empty. Most of the people in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin knew that Luo Qingtong and Yu Wenma had made a bet. This was probably the strangest couple in the history of the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. One wanted to break off the engagement, the other didn't. If it was just this, it would be fine. But the one who wanted to break off the engagement was rumored to love the one who didn't want to break off the engagement. The one who didn't want to break off the engagement was impatient, but for the sake of his promise, he was determined not to break off the engagement. Such a good show. In addition, Luo Qingtong and Yu Wenma both had a good reputation in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. Especially Luo Qingtong, she did a series of surprising things as soon as she entered the Holy Institute. Almost everyone in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin knew her. Under such circumstances, this battle naturally attracted the attention of countless people. Mo Chunxian showed up surrounded by the crowd. He walked to the front of the arena and looked at Ma Chenyi, who was surrounded by the Gui Yuan clan. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Brother, I didn't expect you to come as well. It seems like you're really interested in that Luo Qingtong, just like the rumors say." But Mo Chunxian looked at Ma Chenyi and sneered. "Imperial brother, don't you think this is too degrading? Is a woman from an inferior country worthy of your pursuit? Imperial brother, don't forget your identity." Mo Chunxian implied that Ma Chenyi's behavior was not worthy of the crown prince's identity. She was just a girl from an inferior country. So what if she was powerful? Mo Chunxian sneered in his heart. However, he was happy to see Ma Chenyi's actions. The more Ma Chenyi pursued Luo Qingtong, the more he valued her, and the more interesting his expression would be when she became his female slave. Mo Chunxian sneered as he said this. He turned around and left, and sat down on the chairs prepared by the Dragon Regiment. His words infuriated everyone in the Gui Yuan clique. They didn't understand why Ma Chenyi valued Luo Qingtong before. But after the Heavenly Palace's training ground, they changed their view. Not only that, they admired Luo Qingtong for daring to fight with the Dragon Regiment and winning. Chapter 955. King Wu's ambition is getting bigger and bigger. These years he really didn't restrain himself at all. A backbone member of the Gui Yuan regiment said angrily. Mo Chunxuan's words were really arrogant. It was as if the position of crown prince was already in his bag. He really thought that they were all dead. Don't mind him. He's only good at talking, that's all. Ma Chenyi's face was indifferent. That pair of elegant and calm eyes, however, revealed a cold glint. He was just shouting. According to Ma Chenyi's previous estimation, if Mo Chunxian came back after the breakthrough, he would definitely attack him. But at this moment, he only shouted a few words and it was over. Although in the eyes of others he was no different from usual. But Ma Chenyi obviously felt that Mo Chunxian was not confident enough. So, did he fail to break through? Thinking of the extremely stable dragon qi in his body during this period, Ma Chenyi's eyes were cold and he smiled. Mo Chunxian couldn't be arrogant for long. As for the words that he despised Luo Qingtong, it was even more ridiculous. If Luo Qingtong's identity was exposed, Mo Chunxian couldn't compare at all. He couldn't even find out this. How could Mo Chunxian look down on Luo Qingtong? Ma Chenyi's face was indifferent. He didn't want to lower himself to Mo Chunxuan's level. In contrast, he was more concerned about how much Luo Qingtong's strength had improved. A month's time was really too tight. With Luo Qingtong's talent and strength, if she had enough time, she would definitely surpass Yuanma. The latter couldn't be compared with her at all. But now there was only 1 month. Just as Ma Chenyi frowned slightly, in the huge waterfall outside the holy capital of the Empire of Qin, the water cocoon formed by Luo Qingtong was getting bigger and bigger. All the water around her was sucked into the center of her body. Boom! The whole waterfall showed a strange scene. The water above the waterfall was all flowing to the center. Under such circumstances, the water in the pool below also abruptly flowed upwards. Rumble! The sound of flowing water became more rapid. The roaring sound of the water flow was like the sound of thunder, reverberating in everyone's ears. Bang, bang, bang. As the water flowed backwards, a rhythmic rhythm suddenly resounded from the center of the water flow where Luo Qingtong was. That sound seemed to have a life of its own as it throbbed violently. In the beginning, it was very slow. Then it became faster and faster, faster and faster. But when the sound reached a certain extent, the entire huge water cocoon that was completely enveloped by the waterfall exploded with a boom. Boom. Luo Qingtong's figure rushed out from within. Rumble. The sound of water bursting could be heard all around. The water of the entire waterfall suddenly burst out from the water cocoon. In an instant, the entire sky was filled with mist and water droplets. Large amounts of water burst into the sky. In such a scene, Luo Qingtong was like Muyu walking on water. She stepped on the aura of the water in the sky and walked down step by step. The martial emperor realm, the realm of oneness of heaven and man. She could control the spiritual qi of heaven and earth with her own aura. Countless aura of water floated around Luo Qingtong. Chapter 956. Behind Luo Qingtong, there was a barrier that was hundreds of feet high. It made the girl look like a spirit that was rising from the water. Chief Instructor, I've broken through. Luo Qingtong's eyes sparkled as she looked at the man who was standing on the shore with his hands behind his back. This time, without Yi Qianxian, she would not have broken through so easily. To break through the barrier from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm, one had to use one's own strength to communicate with the power of heaven and earth, and turn the power of heaven and earth into a part of one's own strength cycle. It was easy to say, but it was definitely not easy to do. Yi Qianxian had the heavenly pulse body. His meridians were naturally connected with the power of heaven and earth. Only he knew how to make Luo Qingtong communicate with the power of heaven and earth as soon as possible to establish a new cycle. If it were anyone else, it would be impossible to make Luo Qingtong break through from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm in a month. The improvement in the martial royal realm was a quantitative improvement. As long as the martial artist had enough comprehension and had enough strength in his body, he would naturally be able to break through the barrier. However, comprehension and strength were not enough to break through to the next realm. He also needed opportunities and opportunities. Breaking through to the martial emperor realm from the martial emperor realm was not only a breakthrough to the next realm, but also a breakthrough to a new level. Only when a martial artist entered the martial emperor realm could he be considered to have stepped into the ranks of the experts on the continent and started the real path of cultivation. Only those who entered this realm would know how awe-inspiring the real path of cultivation was. It was only after Luo Qingtong broke through to the martial emperor realm that she realized how shocking it was for her to kill those injured martial emperors with her eye technique and the life and death yin-yang sword. Below the martial emperor realm, she was the enemy of tens of thousands of people. As long as it was an expert below the martial emperor realm, a martial emperor realm expert could plunder the aura of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth around the opponent, so that the opponent could not replenish his strength. He could also directly freeze the aura of the spiritual qi around the opponent. In short, a martial artist below the martial emperor realm would not have any power to fight back against a martial emperor realm expert. However, Luo Qingtong had never felt this way. It was the same when she faced an expert above the martial emperor scripture. She did not think that it was because she was gifted. So, was there something that blocked all of this for her? Luo Qingtong could not help but look at the 9 phoenix ring on her finger. Was it? Among Luo Qingtong's treasures, the 9-story exquisite pagoda had always been in her sea of consciousness. Life and death sword was summoned when it was needed. So it was definitely not. This man was the only one who had forced her to wear the ring, which she had mistaken for a tracker. So, how much had this man done for her without her knowing? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianren with sparkling eyes. Martial of the martial. Looking at the young girl's gaze, he instantly felt stifled. If this gaze was directed at his true self, he would be overjoyed. However, it was for his incarnation. Of the martial emperor. Yi Qianxian felt a burst of irritation in his heart. He deeply felt that he had dug a hole for himself. And this hole was very deep. He had created a love rival for himself. And this love rival was very powerful. Looking at Luo Qingtong's sparkling eyes, Yi Qianxian felt extremely depressed. Puff. Chapter 957. This man is jealous of me again. Luo Qingtong found it funny when she saw his conflicted and depressed expression. At this moment, Little Pig, who was beside her, had also noticed some clues. This man, is he that man? Little Pig whispered to Luo Qingtong. Those who didn't know better would think that Little Pig and Luo Qingtong were talking in riddles. In fact, Little Pig wanted to say that the chief instructor was Yi Qianxian. Luo Qingtong held back her laughter and nodded at Little Pig. Shoo, she whispered to Little Pig, telling him not to let Yi Qianxian know that he had been exposed. Little Pig was speechless as he looked at the two of them. Aren't these two too good at fooling around? One of them thought that the other party didn't know about his disguise and was jealous of him. The other clearly knew that he was disguising his identity, but pretended not to know, making him jealous of himself. You two can do it. Little Pig's lips twitched. Luo Qingtong smiled but didn't say anything. Boss. Yuan Hu and the others came to their senses and surrounded her. Boss, you broke through? They looked at the aura around Luo Qingtong in disbelief. Yes, I broke through. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at the sky. Then she said, let's go. Let's return to the holy court of the Empire of Qin. It's time to let Yuan Ma know who the genius is and who the loser is. He wants to cripple her strength and make her a slave? I'm afraid he doesn't have the ability or opportunity to do so. Yes. Yuan Hu and the others were full of excitement. The Gue Yuan group, and the other talented geniuses of the Holy Court who stayed behind with them were also waiting for a good show. No one expected that Luo Qingtong would really break through to the martial emperor realm in a month. After all, to a certain extent, this was equivalent to a fantasy story. Who would have thought that Luo Qingtong would actually succeed? Of course, it was due to the chief instructor's efforts, but Luo Qingtong's comprehension and talent were top-notch too. Otherwise, how could the chief instructor help her? If she was as stupid as a pig, it would be impossible for her to break through from the martial monarch realm to the martial emperor realm in a month. Yuan Ma probably didn't expect this either, right? His fiancée, whom he despised in every possible way, had actually grown to such an extent. He had even broken the common people's definition of a genius. Everyone could already imagine the shocked expressions of Yuan Ma and the others when Luo Qingtong appeared on the stage. A group of people immediately rushed to the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. At the same time, in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin, Yuan Ma sat beside the arena with a cold face. 2 days ago he had failed to negotiate with Luo Qingtong, which made him very angry. He liked Luo Qingtong. It could even be said that she was in love with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have defended her again and again, and tried to find a way to absolve her. Maybe he did have other purposes for the previous Luo Qingtong, so he was unwilling to give her up. But now, the Luo Qingtong was completely different from what he knew. In addition to those reasons, he also wanted to have her. But she didn't care about him at all. When Luo Qingtong proposed to break off the engagement in the square when they just entered the academy, he thought that she was angry. When she made him kneel while she was fighting with the dragon group, he thought that she was still angry and was wantonly venting. But this time, Chapter 958. The girl who once followed him called him Brother Mo, said that she would work hard to grow up and be his bride, and refused to give up no matter what, was gone. Now Luo Qingtong regarded him as an enemy, an opponent, and an obstacle in her eyes. She didn't want to have anything to do with him. The funny thing was that the Luo Qingtong used to be regarded as a burden and trashed by him. He didn't want to spend any time and energy on her at all. He didn't even want to look at her. Now Luo Qingtong, who disdained him, was tempted. Yuan Ma didn't believe in retribution before, but now he did. Luo Qingtong would rather fail and become Mo Qinshuan's slave than be his fiancée. Her disgust for him had reached such a level. As Yuan Ma thought about it, he suddenly cracked the armrest of the chair he was sitting on. If he didn't withdraw his hand quickly, the armrest would have been crushed by him in an instant. Senior brother, don't be angry. When Luo Qingtong comes, you can teach her a lesson. But I think she doesn't dare to come. Su Jinue, who was sitting next to him, noticed his behavior, and thought that he was angry because Luo Qingtong didn't come. She suddenly felt a burst of joy in her heart, and quickly comforted him. Anyway, if she doesn't come, you will break off the engagement. At that time, we still have a chance to get even with her. Especially when His Highness King Wu comes back. She can't escape. Senior brother, don't worry. If Luo Qingtong doesn't come, my father won't blame you. As she said, she glanced at Su Xiaoxiao and others with disdain and said, it's because some people talked big at the beginning, saying that there would be a gambling battle in a month and that they would break off the engagement. In the end, they just said that. In the end, they still didn't come and continued the trick of breaking off the engagement. It's disgusting. Obviously, she can't bear to leave my senior brother, but she pretended that she didn't care and made the whole Holy Academy know about it. Su Jinhua deliberately let Su Xiaoxiao and the others hear it. Her voice was extremely loud, and in an instant, it spread to the crowd around her. Su Xiaoxiao and the others heard it even though they were standing far away. In an instant, Su Xiaoxiao, that innocent girl, was so angry that her face turned red. How dare you speak ill of boss? Su Xiaoxiao was so angry that she was about to say something. The little girl holding the white cat beside her opened her mouth. That's still better than some shameless women who cling on to someone else's fiancé. Big sis Xiaoxiao, I'm still young, so I don't know how to describe these women. Do you know what to call it? Is she a promiscuous woman or a woman of loose morals? Or is it a lascivious sex? The little girl blinked her eyes and asked innocently. She scolded Su Jinhua thoroughly. You. Su Jinhua glared at the little girl holding the white cat. Before she could yell, a cold voice came from the back of the heavenly demon group from the other side. Let me tell you, this kind of person is called a green TB*TCH. As soon as the voice came, Su Xiaoxiao and the others immediately turned around. Boss. Their faces were full of joy. Because of Su Xiaoxiao and Yuanhu, the people in the heavenly demon group all called Luo Qingtong boss. Hearing this, the crowd in the dueling ring immediately turned their gazes over. Chapter 959. My God! The moment they saw the aura on Luo Qingtong's body, many people took a deep breath. Not for anything else. Luo Qingtong's aura was that of the martial emperor realm. Because she had just advanced, Luo Qingtong's aura was very sharp. Like sharp thorns, it spread in all directions. Even if she tried to restrain it, it would take 1 or 2 days for the sharp aura to circulate perfectly. Luo Qingtong had advanced to the martial emperor realm in a month. Everyone who felt the aura from Luo Qingtong's body opened their eyes wide. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. When Luo Qingtong entered the academy, she was only in the martial royal realm. Although her aura was very condensed, much more condensed than that of ordinary martial royal realm geniuses. But to advance from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm in a month, were they dreaming? Was it because Luo Qingtong was too monstrous? Or were they too ignorant? It should be known that Yuan Ma had a good reputation in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. But it took him more than half a year to advance from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm. Yuan Ma had reached the peak of the martial royal realm a long time ago. After that, he had been stuck at the threshold of advancing from the martial royal realm to the martial emperor realm. He couldn't cross it no matter how hard he tried. It was only after the trip to the Kaiyuan Mystery Land that he got an opportunity to cultivate in seclusion. Luo Qingtong had caught up with Yuan Ma's half a year of hard work in just a month. And looking at Luo Qingtong's aura, she didn't seem to be flimsy at all. She didn't forcibly improve her strength, but actually advanced. Everyone was dumbfounded. Very quickly, someone discovered that Yuan Hu and the rest, including a few members of the Gui Yuan team and a few talented students of the Saint Academy, who were following Luo Qingtong, had a great increase in their abilities. Instantly, they were shocked to realize that Luo Qingtong and the others followed the new chief instructor to train. That was why there was such an improvement. Oh my God! Back then, the Grand Principal had said that the chief instructor was very powerful, and that if one became his last disciple, one's strength could increase by a whole realm within a month. It was actually true. That chief instructor actually did it. As the crowd thought about it, they were both shocked and regretful. Oh my God! If they had known that the chief instructor was so powerful, they would have also acknowledged him as their teacher. You want to be his closed-door student even if you have to be so thick-skinned. When everyone was shocked, Su Jinyue's face was filled with disbelief and embarrassment. How was this possible? Luo Qingtong had broken through to the martial emperor realm? Not only that, but his strength was also very solid. Even if Su Jinyue wanted to say that she had used some dirty tricks to improve herself, she couldn't say it out loud. She looked at Luo Qingtong with an ugly expression. There was nothing more embarrassing than being slapped in the face right now. She had just said that Luo Qingtong didn't dare to come to the battle, but the latter appeared in front of her. Not only that, But Luo Qingtong's words of green tea bitch also hurt her deeply. Although she didn't know what a green tea bitch was, she didn't know that it was a good description. Su Jinyue's voice suddenly became sharp. Luo Qingtong, you. Chapter 960. This woman, from the first time she saw her, she had always been this overbearing. It was as if having a good family meant that the whole world was her mother. However, Luo Qingtong didn't have the attitude of Yu Wenma to spoil her. She calmly glanced at Su Jinyue, and then lowered her head to look at the little girl holding the white cat beside Su Xiaoxiao. She raised her eyebrows and asked, "What's your name?" "Xingqi." The cute little loli giggled and said her name. Then she glanced at Su Jinyue, who was fuming with anger, and said, "So a woman who's sucking up to someone else's fiancé is called a green tea bitch?" She smiled and stroked the white cat in her arms. "I'll remember that. I'll call her green tea bitch from now on. I don't remember her name anyway." The little loli's words were always green tea bitch, and woman who's sucking up to someone else's fiancé, instantly degrading Su Jinyue to the bottom of the mud. Yu Xingqi didn't hide her words at all. Her voice was clear and loud, with an indescribable childish taste, making Su Jinyue's character even more unbearable. When everyone heard her words, they couldn't help but glance at Su Jinyue, thinking that this little girl was right. No matter what, Yu Wenma was someone who had an engagement. In the past, Luo Qingtong wasn't in the sacred institution of the Empire of Qin, and was rumored to be very unbearable. They didn't think that there was anything wrong with Su Jinyue liking Yu Wenma. But now, it seemed that she wasn't behaving properly. Yu Wenma had an engagement, yet she still wanted to be his concubine? Su Jinyue wanted to be a concubine for the daughter of a great teacher of the Seoul Institute. If she didn't want to be his concubine, could it be that Su Jinyue wanted to get rid of Luo Qingtong from the start? No wonder Luo Qingtong's reputation in the sacred institution of the Empire of Qin was so bad. Also, Yu Wenma disliked Luo Qingtong so much before. He wondered how much Su Jinyue had done in the process. With that in mind, everyone looked at Su Jinyue differently. You. Su Jinyue was so angry that she couldn't speak. She did have the intention to replace Luo Qingtong. But how could the Luo Qingtong of the past be worth her scheming? She didn't even put him in her eyes, okay? But now, with just a few words from the other party, she had become synonymous with viciousness and scheming. She had even shamelessly thrown herself at him. There was no way she could clear her name in front of so many people. As Su Jinyue thought of this, she suddenly felt dizzy. He was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. What made her even angrier and more embarrassed was Luo Qingtong's next words. "The green tea *TCH is real. As for my fiancé, he's just trash that I threw away. If she wants to pick him up, then let her." The moment Luo Qingtong's words came out, Su Jinyue's face was so angry that it almost distorted. Before she could speak, Yu Wenma had already stood up angrily. "Luo Qingtong, I'm still your fiancé." Yu Wenma looked at the girl in front of him with an ugly expression. In her heart, he was just a pile of trash. Was he that unbearable? Huh? Luo Qingtong looked coldly at the anger on Yu Wenma's face. Chapter 961. Yu Wenma, when I received the annulment, you were no longer my fiancé. You just didn't want to admit it. What right do you have to be my fiancé? You people from Tianyu's royal family humiliated me and treated my Luo family like pigs and dogs. Have you ever thought about me and the Luo family? After being engaged for so many years, how many times have you been to our Luo family? How many times have you seen me and my grandfather? Yu Wenma, those who humiliate others will be humiliated by others. You abandoned my Luo family like a pair of worn-out shoes. In my eyes, how much better are you than trash? Luo Qingtong's expression was cold. The words she said were all what that Luo Qingtong wanted to say to Yu Wenma back then. Before the Luo Qingtong disappeared, her greatest wish was not only to protect the Luo family, but also to make Yu Wenma regret his actions. She wanted Yu Wenma to know that she didn't care about him anymore. In her eyes, he wasn't even a piece of trash. Today Luo Qingtong helped her say it. Shua. Luo Qingtong jumped onto the stage. Yu Wenma, come up. Let's settle this once and for all today. I'll let everyone know that you Wenma aren't good enough for me, Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. The girl's aura exploded one by one. In the blink of an eye, the black robes around her body fluttered in the wind. That was the robe that Yi Qianming wrapped around her body. Luo Qingtong wore it on the stage. The black robe made Luo Qingtong's skin look like snow, white and tender like cream. Her black silky hair hung on Luo Qingtong's shoulder and was tied up by a purple hairband. It was really charming and elegant. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was like a goddess of war, cold and unparalleled, domineering and enchanting. Yu Wenma, come and fight. Luo Qingtong raised her right hand and unsheathed the Thunder Wind sword, pointing it at Yu Wenma. Today's battle wasn't just to cancel the engagement and take back the Luo family's token. It was to wash away the humiliation of the Luo family for the Tianyu royal family's ungrateful actions. Even more so, for the pride of the original owner, who had been let down. Yu Wenma, I will represent her and trample you under my feet. Tell everyone that you're not good enough for her. Hong. Following Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. Below, Yu Wenma was completely enraged. His gaze was cold and gloomy as he looked at the young girl who was pointing her sword at him. The aura around him also exploded. Luo Qingtong, you forced me to do this. He wanted to give Luo Qingtong, but time and time again two's a woman's it since then. Don't blame him to if he couldn't have it, then no one else could either. Luo, Yu Wenma's figure also leaped onto the arena in an instant. The two of them looked at each other from afar. A bone-chilling aura seeped out of Yu Wenma's body. In just an instant, the entire arena was shrouded in that aura. Creak. As the aura spread out from his body, the railings around the entire ring emitted a screeching sound. Yu Wenma's aura was so cold that it froze the railings around the stage. Soul Imprint Spirit Body. It's a Soul Seal Spirit Body. The aura of the Soul Imprint in Yu Wenma's body is so strong. He's not an ordinary Soul Imprint Spirit Body, right? Chapter 962. Cries of surprise came from the crowd. Yu Wenma's soul power aura was so strong that it was not something a beginner martial emperor could compare with. As a heaven-grade student who entered the Empire of Qin's Saint Academy from the Empire Branch Academy, he was accepted as a closed-door student by the Soul Academy's great teacher. Su Jinhua had contributed a lot to this, but Yu Wenma's talent and strength were also indispensable. Otherwise, no matter how much Su Jinhua liked him and said good things about him to Su Deheng, the latter would not risk damaging his reputation to accept a person with mediocre talent and strength. Yu Wenma's aura was so strong that it was comparable to a beginner martial emperor's. The cold aura emitted from his body was enough to freeze a martial emperor's aura and make it difficult for them to circulate their energy. They were no match for him. Only a beginner martial emperor could resist the cold aura in his body. But don't forget that Yu Wenma had soul skills. His innate soul body could maximize the cold energy in his body. In terms of combat strength, Yu Wenma's strength was comparable to a mid-level martial emperor's. As for Luo Qingtong, she had just broken through to the martial emperor's level. She might not even be stable as a beginner martial emperor. How could she compare with Yu Wenma? Everyone looked at the cold aura emitted from Yu Wenma's body and was almost certain that Luo Qingtong would lose. What a pity. Someone shook his head and said, Luo Qingtong's talent is definitely above Yu Wenma's. She reached the martial emperor's level in a month. If Luo Qingtong was given enough time, Yu Wenma would definitely not be her match. But now she's definitely going to lose. Yeah. The people around him echoed. No one thought that Luo Qingtong would be Yu Wenma's match. The latter's strength completely suppressed Luo Qingtong. Not to mention other things, Luo Qingtong might not be able to resist the cold aura of the Soul Seal. Defeat was only a matter of time. Su Xiaoxiao and the others listened to the discussion around them and felt nervous. The strength that Yu Wenma displayed was indeed extraordinary. Even if they had great confidence in Luo Qingtong, they didn't dare to say that she would definitely win against Yu Wenma. After all, The martial emperor from the royal family of Tianyu whom Luo Qingtong had killed could not be compared to the latter's strength. Boss. Su Xiaoxiao and the others were worried. In the ring, Luo Qingtong looked at the aura emitted from Yuanma's body and narrowed her eyes. She remembered the reason why Yuanma and the original Luo Qingtong. Yuanmo was born with a cold illness. From the looks of it now, his innate cold illness had become a part of his innate talent, allowing him to become a soul imprint spirit body. Yuanmo had received such a great favor from the original owner's mother, yet he actually viewed the original owner and the Luo family as burdens and despised them in every way possible. Luo, did they deserve it? Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She raised her wind and thunder sword and rushed towards Yuanma. Rumble. The two figures instantly clashed together. Luo Qingtong's long sword was like a dragon. As she waved her sword, the sound of wind and thunder came out. Together with the wind and thunder on the long sword, they slashed towards Yuanma. Chapter 963. Bang. Luo Qingtong's thunder sword sound tangled with Yuanma's cold aura. In an instant, the surrounding energy shot out. The students of the Saint Academy who were too close to the arena retreated one after another. They were afraid that if they were touched by the cold aura of their sword moves, they would suffer an unexpected disaster. Boom. On the arena, waves of energy waves rose and filled the entire arena. The sound of wind and thunder and the cold aura were endless, completely covering the two of them. Somewhere in the arena, Yi Qianxian and the Grand Supreme Dean stood on the high platform and watched the battle below. Aren't you afraid that the evil doctor will lose? Since there were no outsiders here, the Grand Supreme Dean didn't hide Luo Qingtong's identity anymore. He immediately looked at Yi Qianxian and asked. The latter was still dressed as Yi Luo. Hearing this, Yi Luo glanced at him and said coldly, she won't lose. You're confident, the Grand Supreme Dean muttered. If she loses, you'll be in trouble. Yuanma's strength is not weak. He was born with a soul seal spiritual body, and his soul seal is very special. The cold aura emitted from his body can even freeze the strength and aura in a person's body. The evil doctor has just broken through to the martial emperor realm. Even if her strength is far stronger than ordinary people who have just entered the martial emperor realm, she will inevitably be affected. The Grand Supreme Dean was really worried. Although he knew that Luo Qingtong was very powerful, the main thing was that Yuanma was not weak either. More importantly, if Luo Qingtong really lost, would the person next to him turn the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin upside down? He was also mentally tired. The other party could have solved the problem with just one sentence, but he just had to make it so troublesome. He really spoiled the evil doctor too much. What would he do if Luo Qingtong lost later? While the Grand Supreme Dean was muttering in his heart, Su Jinhua looked at the scene below the arena with indescribable hatred in her heart. Luo Qingtong was definitely no match for senior brother. That woman dared to call her a green tea bitch. After senior brother crippled her cultivation, broke off the engagement with her, and gave her to Mo Chunxian as a slave, she would like to see how she could still be so arrogant. Green tea bitch? Clinging on to someone else's fiancé and not letting go? It was better than Luo Qingtong becoming a slave and being trampled on by countless men. When that time came, he would definitely bring more people to see what happened to her. That way people would know how cheap she was. Thinking of this, Su Jinhua sneered. However, just as she was about to smile, boom! The sound of a violent collision suddenly came from the arena. In the next second, with a bang, a figure instantly broke through the air waves that filled the arena and heavily smashed into the fence that surrounded the arena. Bang bang bang. Wherever that figure flew past, the iron floorboards would shatter, sending wood fragments flying everywhere. Senior brother must have won. Su Jinhua stood up excitedly. However, when she saw the scene on the stage clearly, her scream stopped. Senior brother? Su Jinhua's voice suddenly turned from excited to shrill. There was a look of disbelief in her voice. For no other reason. The figure that had smashed into the fence was Yuanma. Senior brother? How is this possible? Chapter 964. Buzz. The girl held her long sword horizontally. The wind and thunder sword was held behind her back. The sound of wind and thunder lingered on the tip of the sword. She lifted her leg and slowly withdrew it. Obviously, Yuan Mo had been kicked out by this kick of hers. Oh my god! As the scene in the arena unfolded, many people were shocked. Mo Chunxian had already stood up and was about to leave after giving Ma Chenyi a provocative look. When he saw the scene in the arena, his eyes instantly shrank. Luo Qingtong won this battle? How could this be? She had just broken through to the martial emperor realm. Even if she was gifted, it was impossible for her to not be affected by Yuanma's icy aura. Moreover, Yuanma's cultivation was slightly higher than hers. He could completely suppress her strength. Why was Yuanma the one who was kicked out in the end? Did he go easy on her? Mo Chenxuan's eyes became extremely cold as he thought about it. In the arena, Yuanma got up from the ground and wiped the blood off his lips. He looked at Luo Qingtong with a gaze that was no better than the others. How could you not be affected by my icy aura? The moment Yuan Mo was sent flying, everyone was stunned. Ever since he awakened his soul seal spiritual body, he had always been blessed by nature. Just his icy aura alone was enough to give him the upper hand in a battle against someone of the same level. Not to mention that after he reached the martial emperor realm, the power of his soul seal was completely revealed. His strength was more than 10 times stronger than before. However, Luo Qingtong was not affected by his icy aura at all. In the battle just now, only he knew that Luo Qingtong's strength was not hindered at all from the beginning to the end. Moreover, the strength of the battle experience displayed by the other party also shocked him. The girl that he used to look down on, disdain, and look down on had now grown to the point where he could not see through her at all. Yuanma could not accept this fact. He had always felt superior to Luo Qingtong. In his opinion, no matter how strong Luo Qingtong was, she was still inferior to him. He had a deep impression of Luo Qingtong. Even though Luo Qingtong's talent was stronger than his in the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, he didn't think that she could surpass him or even defeat him. Now he had been slapped in the face, in front of so many people from the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. In particular, he had once said in front of Luo Qingtong that if she didn't admit defeat, he would cripple her strength. Now these words had all become one slap after another, ruthlessly slapping his face until it was burning with pain. I don't need to tell you. Luo Qingtong's voice was cold. Her gaze swept past the 9 nether phoenix ring on her left ring finger. This ring could indeed resist the oppressive aura and strength of those strong cultivators, so she was not affected by them. The icy aura emitted by Yuanma was absorbed by the ring before it could even get close to her. In the past, Luo Qingtong didn't notice it, but now, she clearly felt it. Thinking of that man who used the ring to trap her, but she mistook it for a tracking device, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Yuanma thought her smile was mocking. Chapter 965. Luo Qingtong, don't think that you've already won. I haven't used all the soul power in my body yet. The cold air just now was just the natural release of the aura of the soul imprint that Yuanma carried. He hadn't really used the power of the soul imprint in his body yet. Yuanma thought that he could win without using the soul power in his body. But now it seemed that he had underestimated Luo Qingtong's strength. Luo Qingtong, this time I won't show any mercy. As Yuan Mo spoke, he flew up into the sky. He crossed his hands in front of his chest, forming a strange gesture. In the next second, the aura of the surrounding space changed. Frost Moon Blade. Following Yuanma's voice. In an instant, crescent-shaped ice blades appeared in the sky all around them. Soul Skill. Countless frost blades appeared in the sky in an instant, and then with a wave of Yuanma's hand, they flew toward Luo Qingtong. As those frost blades flew, the sky flickered with an incomparably cold light. Biting cold, murderous intent rose in all directions. When a soul practitioner activated their soul imprint, they could directly use the power of heaven and earth corresponding to their soul imprint's attribute to form an attack in midair. In just an instant, the frost blades came down like rain, exploding toward Luo Qingtong. There was almost no place to dodge such a concentrated attack. Rumble. Explosions rang out in the sky. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed in an instant. In the next second, she activated the pupil technique in her eyes. In the midst of the countless frost blades, her eyes instantly saw through a safe route. Swish. Luo Qingtong's figure swept up in an instant. The girl's figure was like a black butterfly shuttling back and forth in the snowy plains of the northern kingdom, flitting quickly among them. Her fluttering sleeves and hair, set off by her lithe and agile figure, were indescribably fluttering. Boom boom boom. The sharp ice blades missed her and bombarded her surroundings. In the next second, Luo Qingtong leaped into the air. The bloody light in her eyes flickered. Yuanma, I'll return your attack. As she spoke, she raised her hands and crossed them in front of her chest. When they saw that hand gesture, everyone in the surrounding arenas instantly let out a series of exclamations. Could this be? That's impossible. Everyone was stunned as they looked at Luo Qingtong's hands that were crossed in front of her chest. For a moment, they were at a loss for words. They looked at Luo Qingtong in shock. Even Yuanma's pupils constricted when he saw Luo Qingtong cross her hands. Impossible. He shook his head fiercely in his heart. Luo Qingtong can't possibly do it. That's... Before he could finish his thoughts, Luo Qingtong's voice suddenly rang out in the sky. Frost Moonblade. Boom boom boom. As Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, frost blades suddenly floated in the air around her. The figure that flickered with an icy cold glint in midair, and the icy cold aura that scattered in all directions instantly caused everyone around to be shocked speechless. Oh my god! Isn't this the unique soul skill that Yuanma just used? Everyone looked at this scene in shock. Chapter 966. Didn't she need to have the same type of soul power as her opponent to use it? Could it be that Luo Qingtong was also a soul personage with an ice-type soul imprint? But how did she learn Yuanma's unique soul skill in an instant? Wasn't this too abnormal? While everyone was dumbstruck, Little Pig was even more shocked than them. Oh my god! Little Pig stared at the ice blades floating around Luo Qingtong, and didn't know what to say. He knew that Luo Qingtong wasn't an ice-type soul personage. So how did she unleash such a soul skill? Little Pig's small eyes were wide open. The Grand Dean also turned his head to look at Yi Qianren in shock. That girl is also an ice-type soul personage? Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Not only did she have the same type of soul imprint as Yuanma, but she also knew his soul skill. The Grand Dean couldn't believe it. He suddenly remembered the rumor about Luo Qingtong's previous identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. It was said that the martial king expert sent by the Chung family to kidnap her slaves died at the hands of her own unique skill. At that time, he didn't pay much attention to the rumor and thought it was just a coincidence or some other reason. But now it seemed, this lass actually knew any combat skill that she saw? Even her soul skill was no exception. While the Grand Dean was still in shock, Yi Qianxian's eyes flashed with deep astonishment. The girl's ability had always exceeded his expectations. Ever since he met her, she had been constantly giving him surprises. This time was no exception. Sometimes, Yi Qianxian even wondered if Luo Qingtong was a treasure specially bestowed to him by the heavens, reigniting his interest and longing for this world. Boom boom boom. While everyone was still in shock, the ice blades around Luo Qingtong's body suddenly shot toward the stunned Yuanma like falling stars. The latter didn't expect this at all and couldn't dodge in time. In the next second, bang bang bang. Violent sounds came one after another. In an instant, Yuanma's figure was surrounded by the ice blades. Under such circumstances, Yuanma's figure was instantly blasted away by those sharp ice blades. His defense was sliced apart by the sharp, icy blades. Countless moon blades slashed across his body. In an instant, Yuanma let out a blood-curdling scream. His whole body flew into the air and heavily smashed into the ground. The surroundings fell into absolute silence. Everyone looked at the girl standing across from them with shock. In that instant, she was domineering, valiant, enchanting, and beautiful. It almost made them think that they saw the goddess of war. Cough impossible. Luo Qingtong, how can you know the ice crescent blade? Yuanma stood. His soul skill was born from his soul imprint. Mo was born with a cold disease. His body couldn't withstand the erosion of the cold air. If he didn't want to die, he could only destroy the ice cold in his body. But this way, Mo's innate soul seal would be destroyed. The Tianyu imperial family was unwilling. The Tianyu empress begged in every way possible, and set up a marriage contract with Luo Qingtong's mother. She swore to treat Luo Qingtong well. Chapter 967. Just like that, Luo Qingtong's mother managed to suppress the cold energy in Mo's body at the cost of her own life, and the engagement token. For so many years, Mo relied on the suppression of the engagement token to become the genius he was today. But he didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be able to use his own unique soul skill. How could this be? That was a soul skill that could only be used because of his innate cold illness. How could Luo Qingtong use it? Mo couldn't believe it, but the truth was right in front of him. Ma. Luo Qingtong's voice was cold as she slowly stepped forward. Tianyu's imperial family once had a marriage agreement with my Luo family. From then on you, who should have died from your innate cold illness, became a genius of Tianyu Empire and the Empire of Qin Holy Dynasty. You entered the Empire of Qin Holy Academy and soared to the top with a limitless future. The entire Tianyu Empire and Tianyu's imperial family benefited from your genius. But how did you treat me and the Luo family? Luo Qingtong stared coldly at Ma, who was struggling to get up from the ground. You treated me and the Luo family as burdens. You treated our marriage agreement as a disgrace. Tianyu's imperial family did their best to trample on the Luo family and my grandfather. Have you forgotten that you knelt on the ground and begged for this marriage agreement? It was you Ma, who tricked us. Ma lied to the young Luo Qingtong that he would die if they didn't get engaged. Luo Qingtong cried and begged to marry him. Luo Qingtong's mother finally agreed to the marriage. But how did Ma and Tianyu's imperial family treat Luo Qingtong and the Luo family? Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Ma had taken so much from the Luo family and Luo Qingtong. She was going to make him pay it all back. Genius? Fiancé? He wasn't worthy. Boom. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and instantly made another hand gesture. Frost Moonblade. Countless ice blades descended from the sky and blasted Ma away once again. She was born with the mixed Yuan body. She could use all the power as soon as she got her hands on it. Others might not be able to use Ma's unique soul skill, but it was a piece of cake for Luo Qingtong. After activating his dojutsu to copy the moves, it was time for Luo Qingtong to perform. She would let Ma know what a true genius was. In the past, he looked down on Luo Qingtong, thinking that she was just a stain and a disgrace in his glorious career. He allowed Tianyu's imperial family to humiliate and despise Luo Qingtong in every possible way. Today, she was going to trample on him and tell him that he was nothing. Bang! Ma's body fell to the ground again. This time, his body's defenses weren't able to withstand it. Ma spat out a mouthful of blood after 2 consecutive attacks, using his most prized move. What made his face turn ashen was that the same attack and the same soul skill couldn't compare to Luo Qingtong's. Not only did she learn his soul skill in an instant, but she also used it better than him. Ma's sense of superiority was completely shattered. Boom boom boom. One attack after another landed on Ma's body. Every attack was Ma's most prized move. Chapter 968. Thank you for being as blind as a bat and mistaking fish eyes for pearls. Also thank your Tianyu royal family for looking down on us and letting our Luo family see the truth. If it wasn't for you and the Tianyu royal family, I wouldn't be here today. If the previous host hadn't died, she wouldn't have been able to transmigrate and wouldn't have been able to appear on this stage. So everything had a cause and effect. It wasn't that she didn't want revenge. It wasn't time yet. Pung. Another attack landed on Mo's body. This attack is for the threat you gave me before. You want me to admit defeat and kowtow to others to protect me. Mo, I don't know how you have the face to say such things. Are you proud? A man can't even protect his own woman, and she has to compromise to protect herself. Do you feel a sense of accomplishment? Does that count as protecting me? Then I really have to thank you for not protecting me. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold, and her face was filled with disgust as she looked at Yuan Mo. Most of her disgust towards Yuan Ma came from the memories of the original owner. Yuan Ma's inaction towards the ungrateful actions of the Tianyu imperial family had wasted the prime of the original owner's life, and directly led to the original owner's death. Then the words Yuan Mo said to her a few days ago made her feel extreme disgust towards Yuan Mo. Only the most cowardly and incompetent man wouldn't even dare to protect his own woman. He even asked her to sacrifice herself, and said it was for her own good? If it wasn't for the fact that she wanted to give the previous host and the Luo family an explanation, she would have stepped on him in the most ruthless way possible in front of everyone. Luo Qingtong had already split this self-righteous man apart when Yuan Mo came to find her that day. How much glory and opportunity did he think he gave her? She didn't know what was good for her? Then she was really sorry. She really didn't need such a disgusting opportunity. It was best for trash like Yuan Mo to scram as far as possible. Pung. Yuan Mo's body heavily hit the ground. Luo Qingtong's every strike was extremely ruthless. She didn't show any mercy. Yuan Ma's face was ashen after being defeated by his signature move, and it was even his unique soul skill. He clutched his wound and lay on the ground, exhaling heavily. His entire body seemed to have gone limp as he watched the young girl slowly walk over like an Azura goddess. He really didn't know which part of his heart was more emotional. Regret, frustration, humiliation, shock, disbelief. Various emotions intertwined together, causing Yuan Ma's heart to be as colorful as the expression on his face. It was as exciting as a palette. Before today. No, it should be said that before this moment, he never thought that one day he would be beaten by Luo Qingtong like a dog without any ability to fight back. What's more, the opponent was using his most prized move. Yuan Ma felt as if he had been slapped in the face by countless people. His expression was extremely ugly. At the same time, he was extremely regretful. The talent and power that Luo Qingtong displayed right now was much stronger than he had imagined. Was this what that person's daughter should be like? Chapter 969. Would the talented and powerful young girl in front of him become his pride and envy, docile and well-behaved as she nestled in his arms? Didn't that mean that he had everything? His enviable fiancée, as well as the enormous benefits that she was hiding behind the scenes. What did he miss out on? Yuan Ma's heart was filled with deep regret and resentment. Bang! Just as he was thinking, Luo Qingtong had already stepped in front of him. She narrowed her eyes at the man who indirectly caused the original owner of the body to die tragically. She bent down to take the jade pendant that was revealed on his neck. During the battle just now, Luo Qingtong had already locked onto the jade pendant that Yuan Ma was wearing around his neck at a glance. The design and faintly discernible feeling made Luo Qingtong certain that it was what she wanted. The Luo family's engagement token. No. Sensing Luo Qingtong's actions, Yuan Ma instantly began to struggle violently, ignoring his serious injuries. In that instant, he regained his senses. He and Luo Qingtong had a wagered battle, and not an ordinary sparring match. The price for losing was to give up his engagement with Luo Qingtong and return the engagement token given to him by the Luo family. But that betrothal token... Bang! Before Yuan Ma could make a move, Luo Qingtong, who had been eyeing the jade pendant for a long time, stepped forward and stepped on the back of Yuan Ma's hand. The moment he stopped his movements, he pulled the jade pendant off his hand. She and Yuan Ma had set up this gambling match so that she could snatch the jade pendant fair and square. As for the engagement, she had long since stopped caring about it. Was her evil eyes marriage something that others could decide just because they wanted to? How could Yuan Ma not remove it just because he said so? Ah! As the jade pendant was pulled off, Yuan Ma instantly let out a blood-curdling scream. This blood-curdling scream was even more tragic than when he had been attacked, and it was filled with terror. In just an instant, Yuan Ma, who was on the stage, screamed miserably under the shocked gazes of the crowd. He curled up into a ball and rolled around the stage crazily. Give it back to me. Give that jade pendant back to me. Ah! Yuan Ma screamed miserably. When Luo Qingtong pulled the jade pendant off his hand, an icy aura emanated from his body. However, it was different from the icy aura that had spread out before. This icy aura had all condensed on Yuan Ma's surface. In just a moment, Yuan Ma's body and hair were covered in frost, turning his entire body purple from the cold. Even the power in his body was frozen. Natural cold illness. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows when she saw the cold air coming out of Yuan Ma's body. So that's it. Yuan Ma's illness of the cold. Was it suppressed by the jade pendant, and became a part of his power? Now that she had taken the jade pendant off, the icy aura in his body immediately went out of control, and began to bite back, and after suppressing it for so many years, the backlash from the icy aura was fierce enough to freeze Yuan Ma's power, and make him suffer a fate worse than death. Luo Qingtong looked at Yuan Ma, who was screaming and rolling on the stage, and felt that he deserved it. Using the engagement token given by the original owner's mother to suppress the icy aura in his body and increase his power, he actually didn't treat the other party and the Luo family well. Chapter 970. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she held the engagement token and turned to leave. She was originally prepared to cripple Yuan Mo's strength as a form of retaliation. Now seeing the cold energy erupting from his body, Luo Qingtong felt that there was no need to do this. This allowed Yuan Mo to maintain his strength and constantly feel the pain of the cold air invading his body. Let him clearly have strength, but because of the cold energy, he couldn't take another step forward. From now on, he would have no chance to increase his strength. Never having the chance to reach the peak was more painful than crippling his strength. How he stepped on the original owner and the Luo family to get to the top. Now let him pay it back. Let him feel that if it wasn't for the original owner and the Luo family, his life would be worse than death. He relied on stepping on the Luo family and the original owner to get so many years of comfort and glory. Now let him pay it all back. Luo Qingtong thought as she raised her hand, and an invisible force entered Yuan Mo's body. This force wouldn't cause any harm to Yuan Mo, but it was enough to make the cold energy in Yuan Mo's body unable to be cured. In the future, Yuan Mo would have to live with this cold energy for the rest of his life. This was the price he had to pay for being ungrateful to Luo Qingtong and the Luo family. After doing all this, Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold, and she turned to jump off the stage. At this time, Su Jinyue, who had been completely stunned by what had happened, finally reacted. Senior brother. She looked at Yuan Mo, who was almost frozen into an ice man. His body was covered in bruises and he kept screaming and rolling around. She couldn't believe that this was the man she loved so much. How was this possible? Luo Qingtong not only won against senior brother, but also made him like this? Su Jinyue didn't know about the cold energy in Yuan Mo's body. She only thought that Luo Qingtong made him like this and immediately cried out. Luo Qingtong. Your mind is too vicious. What did you do to senior brother? Luo Qingtong ignored her completely. She walked to the edge of the ring, and was about to jump down. At this moment, an angry roar came from behind the crowd not far away. Stop right there. The Seoul Institute's head teacher rushed over. He didn't think that Yuan Mo would lose to Luo Qingtong. He didn't even come to the battle. He only waited for Yuan Mo to cripple Luo Qingtong's strength and bring him to kneel and apologize to him. Who would have thought that after waiting for so long, he would receive the news that Yuan Mo had lost the bet? Furthermore, the cold energy of the soul seal in his body had actually backfired. After receiving the news, the Seoul Institute's great teacher immediately rushed to the Sky Hall's training arena. When he saw Yuan Ma's appearance on the stage, he immediately flew into a rage. Luo Qingtong, what did you do to make him like this? He Luo's Qingtong's raises and grab her. Return him to his original state immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Su Deheng immediately determined that Luo Qingtong had used some underhanded method to deal with Yuan Mo. He immediately raised his hand to grab her. The Seoul Institute's head teacher's pressure instantly suppressed Luo Qingtong. Chapter 971. The Grand Dean had said that he could not use his power and authority as a Seoul Institute master to attack Luo Qingtong. However, Luo Qingtong couldn't absolve herself from the blame for Yu Wenma's current state. He naturally had enough reason to make a move. Bang! Luo Qingtong's eyes sharpened when she saw the Seoul Academy's great teacher's palm coming for her, and the oppressive aura pressing down on her like a low pressure. However, before she could do anything, a figure appeared in front of her and raised his hand to block the Seoul Institute's head teacher's attack. "It's you again." The Seoul Institute's head teacher was furious when he saw the hand grabbing his wrist. It was the Sacred Institute's chief instructor, who came out of nowhere. The Seoul Institute's head teacher didn't like the other party. Last time, it was the other party who stopped him. In the end, not only did he fail to teach Luo Qingtong a lesson, he was forced to lose face. Not only was he punished by the Grand Dean, but his daughter and students were also forced to kneel before Luo Qingtong and the others. This time, he was meddling in other people's business again? Let go. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. The Seoul Institute's head teacher was furious. He looked at Yi Qianxian with a cold gaze. His aura fluctuated, and he was about to make a move. At this moment, the Grand Dean's voice rang out. "Su Deheng, what are you doing?" The Grand Dean appeared on the stage right after Yi Qianren. He looked at the Seoul Academy's great teacher with a sullen expression. Why was he meddling in Luo Qingtong's matter again? Didn't he just warn him not to lay his hands on Luo Qingtong? It's only been a few days, but he's treating my words like the wind. Grand Dean, Luo Qingtong used some dark method to turn Yu Wenma into this state. I can't ignore this matter. It's best if you don't interfere. Otherwise, I have reason to suspect that you're protecting Luo Qingtong. Fuck. Hearing the Seoul Institute's head teacher's words, the Grand Dean was about to vomit blood. He was protecting Luo Qingtong? What the hell was he doing? With Yi Qianxian here, was there a need for him to protect her? If he wasn't afraid that the idiot Su Deheng would attack Luo Qingtong and anger Yi Qianxian, the Empire of Qin's Sacred Institute would be in trouble. Did he think he would be willing to interfere? It's not like his brain was damaged. Didn't he see that Yi Qianren's murderous aura had already reached an unimaginable level? The Grand Supreme Dean was truly angered to death. Seoul Institute's great teacher was simply making bogus accusations. Since he wasn't Willing's head teacher's head tea, the Grand Supreme Dean thought about it and said coldly, "Sure. I won't interfere in this matter. But teachers, S's. Since you, use Qin's, TSSSS-2's. After he, S. Being. The Empire of Qin's Sacred Institute wasn't going to take the blame. The Grand Dean's words had cut off Su Deheng's path of using his identity and authority to deal with Yi Qianren. If he wants to die, he can do it himself. Fine. Su Deheng thought that the Grand Dean had no choice but to compromise. He sneered and looked at Yi Qianxian. Are you going to scram now, or do you want me to open you up? The Seoul Institute's head teacher didn't think the other party was his match. As the head teacher of the Empire of Qin's Sacred Institute, Su Deheng's strength could be counted on one hand. There weren't many people who could defeat him. Chapter 972. Who was this man? Sacred Academy's chief instructor? He didn't know where the Grand Dean found this person. He had never heard of the name Yi Luo. He probably wasn't a particularly powerful expert. The only reason he was able to stop him last time was because he had the advantage of a sneak attack. The Seoul Academy's head teacher was thinking this, but he didn't know that the Grand Dean had already covered his face. He couldn't bear to watch. The evils he brought upon himself were the hardest to bear. Telling Blackfield to scram? And to open him up. Even the gods in the heavens weren't as good at bragging as him. It would be strange if he could touch a single finger of Yi Qianxian. While the Grand Dean was speechless, the Seoul Academy's head teacher had already made his move. Boom! The aura around him exploded. The powerful and terrifying aura emanated from his body one after another, almost tearing the surrounding air apart. The powerful aura that spread out forced the surrounding students of the Sacred Academy to step back one after another. Soul Academy's head teacher. Seeing that Su Deheng had actually made his move, Su Xiaoxiao and the others immediately panicked. Why didn't the Grand Dean stop him? If the chief instructor couldn't stop him, everyone was anxious and wanted to charge over without a care for their own safety. At this moment, bang! The sound of a violent collision was heard. Everyone watched in shock as the Soul Academy's head teacher flew in front of them and landed heavily on the ground. The Soul Academy's head teacher spat out a mouthful of blood and looked in shock at the man who was looking at him with a cold expression. You. The Soul Academy's head teacher was indescribably shocked. In that instant, the power around him seemed to have hit a steel plate. How was this possible? How could the other party be so strong? Even the Grand Dean wouldn't be able to defeat him and send him flying so easily. The Soul Academy's head teacher had already gone all out in that attack. He wanted to make an example out of Yi Qianxian, but he didn't expect that he would become the chicken. Yi Qianming looked at him coldly. If it weren't for the fact that his identity couldn't be exposed, the Soul Academy's head teacher would already be a dead man. Bang! He took a heavy step forward, instantly appearing in front of the Seoul Institute's grand teacher who had been sent flying. The latter had been seriously injured by the attack just now. Seeing this, he was shocked and struggled to get up. But before he could move, Yi Qianming's head teacher's head teacher's head teacher's head teacher. His head teacher's head teacher's head teacher's head teacher's head. Bang! The Seoul Academy Grand Master had just crawled up from the ground. He didn't even have time to gather his energy before Yi Qianming's aura forced him to kneel on the ground. Head's head. In an instant, the Seoul Institute's head teacher screamed miserably. Teet head. Now you can scram. Teet. But now he was immediately slapped in the face by someone else. Moreover, he had been beaten so badly and so painfully. The Seoul Academy's head teacher's body trembled violently. He was in pain and also humiliated. Where did this guy come from? Chapter 973. Su Deheng had tried his best to resist. But if his aura was like a steel plate, then Yi Qianming's aura was like a steel spike. Ruthlessly and unstoppably, it directly crushed all the aura around Su Deheng's body and blasted into his body. How could he be so strong? Who was he? The Seoul Institute's great teacher trembled violently. At this moment, Su Jinyue, who was beside the unconscious Yuanma, raised her head and saw this scene. She immediately screamed, "Father! What did you do to my father?" Su Jinyue couldn't believe that her father, the Seoul Institute's great teacher, would lose to a nameless person. What Yi Luo? What Holy Institute's chief instructor? She had never heard of their names. They must have used some despicable method to deal with her father. Thinking of this, Su Jinyue instantly lost her mind and scolded Yi Qianming loudly. "How dare you do this to my father? You bastard! Trash! You!" Before she could finish speaking, the expression of the Grand Principal on the other side suddenly darkened. "Su Jinyue, shut up." He raised his hand and was about to seal her mouth. However, even though he was fast, someone else was faster than him. Whoosh! Hearing those insults about Yi Qianming, Luo Qingtong, who was tightly protected by the man, had a cold expression. She raised her hand and curled her fingers. In an instant, a few faintly discernible forces suddenly shot into Su Jinyue's body. In an instant, the aura in the latter's body seemed to have been stimulated. It constantly twisted and crazily drilled out. While Su Jinyue was scolding, she suddenly felt that something was constantly drilling out of her body. That familiar, itchy and painful feeling instantly made her face turn pale. No, it couldn't be those things. They had been cured by her. It couldn't be them. However, just as Su Jinyue was thinking about it, she suddenly screamed. Then, under everyone's horrified gaze, she desperately scratched her face with her hands. Her long and sharp nails instantly scratched her face into a bloody mess. "Noah!" She screamed shrilly as she clawed. Then, everyone gasped as they saw huge festering boils on Su Jinyue's face and body. After the abscesses appeared, they quickly festered. Soon, from within the festering flesh, human faces with hideous and terrifying expressions emerged, shrieking shrilly. Ah! Seeing this scene, many people cried out in alarm. What was going on? How did Su Jinhua become like this? While everyone was surprised, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. Only people who have done too many bad things can't cure it. The yin qi won't disperse. Su Jinhua, you and your father, one of you is scheming and has done all kinds of bad things, while the other has no virtue as a teacher and doesn't deserve to be a teacher. You two are really from the same origin. Luo Qingtong's voice was cold. She had just used a special method to trigger the hidden yin qi in Su Jinhua's body. At the same time, she injected all the yin qi in the heart of the 1,000-year-old soul-guiding tree into Su Jinhua's body. She also drew a yin drawing diagram in her body. In the future, Su Jinhua would be on the same side as these ghost face boils. This was the price for insulting Yi Qianming. She couldn't bear to scold this man. Who was Su Jinhua? How dare she scold him? Chapter 974. Su Jinhua couldn't care less about Luo Qingtong's words now. She screamed and scratched her face with all 10 of her fingers. With a tearing sound, she actually tore off a large piece of skin from her face. His crazed and pained appearance caused the surrounding crowd to shudder. Wasn't this ghastly facial ulcer too scary? Su Jinhua had it all over her body. How many shameful things had she done? Everyone looked at Su Jinhua strangely and distanced themselves from her. Su Deheng pounced on her. Seeing his daughter in this state, Su Deheng's eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. His student was crippled, his daughter became like this, and his legs were broken. As a teacher of the Soul Institute, he had lost all his face. As Su Deheng thought of this, hatred surged in his heart, and he almost fainted. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Luo Qingtong, you're wrong. The teacher of the Soul Institute was just concerned about his student. Yu Wenma is the last student of the Soul Institute. If he didn't care at all, he would be called cold-blooded and heartless. He has no morals as a teacher. Mo Chunxian walked out of the crowd as he spoke. He had been watching the development of the situation coldly from the crowd. Now he walked out and was ready to do Su Deheng a favor. The teachers of the Saint Institute of the Empire of Qin had never taken sides. Especially Su Deheng. Other than his own strength, his wife's identity was even more impressive. Mo Chunxian had always wanted to rope him in, so he was on good terms with Yu Wenma and valued him. The current situation undoubtedly gave him a chance. The teacher of the Soul Institute didn't do anything wrong, but he was a little too radical. However, Mo Chunxian narrowed his eyes coldly at Yi Qianming. The other party's strength shocked him, but this was a chief instructor who had just entered the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy. He didn't even know where he came from, so he naturally wasn't as valuable as Su Deheng, a great teacher of Soul Academy. Moreover, this Yi Luo was obviously standing on the Grand Supreme President's side. That made him even more inferior to Su Deheng. Mo Chunxian thought so. He immediately said coldly, Chief Instructor Yi Luo and the Soul Institute's head teacher are using their personal identities to solve this problem. However, the Soul Institute's head teacher is not only a teacher of the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy, but also a prince of the Sacred Dynasty. I wonder what is Chief Instructor Yi Luo's identity and title? Mo Chenxuan's eyes were cold. If he doesn't have a noble title, I'm afraid that Chief Instructor Yi Luo and Soul Academy's great teacher will be charged with the crime of offending their superiors. Hearing Mo Chenxuan's words, everyone's face froze. Oh my god, this show is really getting more and more exciting. His Highness King Wu was obviously standing on the side of the Soul Institute's head teacher. He wanted to use the Sacred Dynasty's title to avenge the Soul Institute's head teacher. Everyone understood that since the Soul Institute's head teacher was using his personal identity to fight, a loss was a loss. There was nothing to say. However, with Mo Chenxuan's words, the nature of the confrontation just now changed. Originally, it was just a fight between two people. Now that it had risen to the level of status, If Chief Instructor Yi Luo didn't have a noble title, he would be in trouble. Everyone thought so, and immediately looked at Yi Qianming. Chapter 975. Grand Dean. Didn't you say before that we are settling our grudges as individuals? If that's the case, then my identity and title will naturally be included. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Qianming with resentment. I am no longer a teacher of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, but a prince of the Holy Dynasty of the Empire of Qin. I would like to see what title Chief Instructor Yi Luo has with his strength. According to Su Deheng's thoughts, he had never heard of Yi Luo's name. If the other party was not a newly advanced expert who had surpassed the Saint Realm, then he must be someone who lived in seclusion. Under such circumstances, how could the other party have a title of nobility of the Holy Dynasty? At that time, he could use the other party's offense to force the other party to apologize to him. If the other party refused, the law enforcement team of the Holy Dynasty would naturally wait for him. Thinking of this, Su Deheng seemed to have found a way to regain his face. The way he looked at Yi Qianming suddenly became arrogant. He was very satisfied with Mo Qinshuan's goodwill this time. Since the other party helped him like this, he would naturally support him in the future. As for Ma Chenyi, who stood on Luo Qingtong's side, he should be prepared to step down. Anyway, he, as the crown prince, was almost at the end of his road. His strength had been stagnant for a long time, and there was no movement for a few years. It was even regressing. Compared to the martial king's strength that was constantly improving, there was no comparison at all. Su Deheng did not want to get involved in the fight for the throne before, but now he had no choice but to get involved. Today's matter, he, the Grand Dean, and Luo Qingtong would not let it go. Chief Instructor Yi Luo, show us your identity and title. Let us see your elegance. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Su Deheng's voice was cold and gloomy as he pressed on. Hearing this, the Grand Supreme Dean didn't know what to say. Recently, Su Deheng had been refreshing the upper limit of his cognition. Every time he thought that the other party had done something big, the other party would use actual actions to tell him, no, not enough. We can commit even greater deaths. Comparing status with Blackfield's Nether Venerable. Even the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin would have to be respectful to this person. Who did he think he was? He was just a prince with a different surname, a first-class noble. No, he couldn't watch this anymore. The Grand Supreme Dean covered his face and silently turned his head. He had tried his best. He wanted to save some face for Su Deheng. After all, he was a teacher of the Saint Academy, wasn't he? However, the other party didn't give him a chance at all. She thought about how she had just stepped forward to speak, but before she could open her mouth, she was blocked by the other party. The corner of the Grand Supreme Dean's mouth twitched. He really couldn't be blamed for this. He had tried his best. How could they talk if their IQ was different? There was nothing he could do. While the Grand Supreme Dean was complaining in his heart, Yi Qianming's gaze was focused on Su Deheng. Title. He looked at the other party's arrogant face. No. Yi Qianming's status was on the same level as the Saint Emperors of the four sacred dynasties. What kind of title could they give him? Could it be that the position of Saint Emperor should be given to him? Even if the other party was willing to give it to him, Yi Qianming didn't want it. However, although he didn't have a title, but Yi Qianming turned his hand and took out a token. Is this enough? If you don't have a title, then you. Su Deheng had already sneered when he heard that Yi Qianxian didn't have a title. Chapter 976. This is the Supreme Sacred Token. He looked at the token in the man's hand in shock, and his face was indescribably distorted. Beside him, Mo Qinshuan's face also changed when he heard the words he blurted out. Supreme Sacred Token? How could this be? Only the Transcendent Saints of the four sacred dynasties could issue such a token. Every token represented the power and status of a Transcendent Saint. What kind of existence was a Transcendent Saint? It was an existence that ruled the entire sacred dynasty, like the Eastern region's supremacy. How could he have such a token? The two's faces twisted in shock, and the people around them looked at Yi Qianming with the same shock. Supreme Sacred Token. Those who could enter the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin were not ordinary people. How could they not know what a Supreme Sacred Token was? Under such circumstances, the way they looked at Yi Qianming changed. Originally, everyone was very envious of Luo Qingtang and the others for being able to become Yi Qianxian's disciple, and for their strength to increase so much. Especially Luo Qingtang, who rose from the Martial Emperor realm to the Martial Emperor realm in a month. Not only was the chief instructor strong, he was also very good at teaching people. Not only that, the chief instructor even had a supreme sacred token on him. Oh my God! Once they thought of what the supreme sacred token represented, they beat their feet and stomped their chests. If they had known earlier, they would have risked everything to become the chief instructor's disciple. Even if they had to be shameless, they would have done it. Su Deheng and Emo Qinshuan's faces turned ugly, but Yuan Hu and the others relaxed. Haha. Yuan Hu, the guy who wished for the world to be in chaos, laughed loudly. He looked at Su Deheng and Emo Qinshuan's ugly faces and mocked. Yo! Great teacher of the Soul Institute, please continue. Continue your performance. How about our chief instructor's status? What's that with you? Oh. Compared to a prince with a different surname, who is more powerful? Is our chief instructor offending his superiors? Yuan Hu's voice was extremely loud. In particular, he had purposely added a little bit of power into it. In an instant, his voice spread throughout the entire arena like a lion's roar. If it weren't for the special materials used in the Sky Hall's training ground and the isolation of the formation, the Sky Hall's arena would have been destroyed. His words could probably spread to almost half of the Sky Hall's training ground. Su Deheng and Emo Qinshuan looked extremely embarrassed. Especially Emo Qinshuan, who had deliberately brought up the difference between their identities in order to help Su Deheng vent her anger, so that he could better win her over. In the end, not only did he not vent his anger, he even helped someone else steal the limelight. His side had lost all face. He was even beaten swollen. His face alternated between green and white, and he almost couldn't control his expression. There was no need to mention Su Deheng. Just now, when Yi Qianxian said that he didn't have a noble title, his expression was so arrogant. He almost laughed out loud. In the end, he was slapped in the face. His proud, arrogant, and shocked expression was fixed on his face. It was as strange as it could be. The chief instructor has the supreme sacred token, so he naturally wouldn't offend his superiors. Sima Ju's voice rang out at this moment. However, the person who fought with the chief instructor is offending his superiors. Chapter 977. Su Deheng's expression turned even uglier. Beside him, Emo Qinshuan couldn't maintain his composure either. After all, he was the one who suggested using his title to suppress others. Now he was slapped in the face instead. He didn't even have a reason to find an excuse. Moreover, even if they wanted to find an excuse, they had to see if Yi Qianxian was willing or not. Obviously, Yuan Hu and the rest weren't going to let them off. Just as he was thinking this, on the other side, Yuan Hu, Sima Ju, and Ling Yu had already started talking loudly. Oh. So that means that the person who offended his superior is actually the Soul Institute's great teacher? Then what should we do if he offends his superior? Kowtow and apologize. Sigh. The Soul Institute's great teacher was beaten up so badly and he's still kneeling. Let's not force him to do anything. Just let him kowtow and apologize. As soon as he said that, Su Deheng couldn't hold back the sweet taste in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was already injured from the fight with Yi Qianxian, and was holding on with his last breath. Now, not only did he fail to vent his anger, he lost even more face. Thinking of this, Su Deheng was so angry that he started trembling. In the next second, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Soul Institute's great teacher. Seeing Su Deheng faint, Emo Qinshuan naturally couldn't stay in the arena any longer. He glanced coldly at Luo Qingtang and the rest and said coldly, "Good. You guys are very good." He didn't dare to target Yi Qianxian, so he vented all his anger on Luo Qingtong and the rest. I hope you guys can still laugh in the future. As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and said to the people beside him, "Bring the Seoul Institute's great teacher and the rest. We're leaving." A group of people from the Dragon Group heard the order, and hurriedly helped the Seoul Institute's great teacher, Yu Wonma, and Su Jinuer up. The group of people left with their tails between their legs. Especially Mo Chenxian, he was in high spirits when he came here, thinking that Luo Qingtong was bound to lose. He even planned to make her his slave. In the end, not only did Luo Qingtong win, she even crippled Yu Wonma. But that wasn't all. The Seoul Institute's Grand Master had personally stepped in, and he didn't even care about his reputation. Yet he still hadn't managed to gain any advantage. Where did that Yi Luo come from? How could there be a supreme saint order? Mo Chunxian and the others left angrily. On the other side, Su Xiaoxiao and the others were overjoyed. The members of the Heavenly Evil Group cheered, laughing and jumping. Those who had just joined felt indescribably lucky. Fortunately, they made the right bet this time. Luo Qingtong actually won against Yu Wonma, and in such a beautiful manner, forcefully slapping the Dragon Group in the face once again. This time they really didn't misjudge him. As the group cheered, the members of the Gue Yuan group also came up to congratulate. Ma Chenyi looked at Luo Qingtong and smiled. "Congratulations on winning the bet. You have nothing to do with Yu Wonma anymore." The young man's temperament was elegant and steady. When he smiled and congratulated her, he gave off the feeling of a jade-like gentleman. Seeing the sincere congratulation in his eyes, Luo Qingtong smiled faintly. "Thank you, Your Highness." As she spoke, she suddenly felt a pair of eyes staring at her. Luo Qingtong turned her head and saw Yi Qianxian's disguised face looking at her with a dark expression. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."